Take me back to the beginning, because I know that you played in the Cavern Club. How did you get into the Beatles world, the Ringo world?
A friend of mine from music college was involved in what I call Beatles world. He was a George Harrison.
Even that, just how easily you just said that. He was a George Harrison.
Yeah.
If you don't know about Beatles world, which I very much didn't until I went to England, what do you mean he was a George Harrison? That sentence shouldn't make sense.
No. So he's a George Harrison impersonator, which means he started off. His name's Richard Petch. He's a really, really, really close friend of mine, and basically at music school, there's a guy called Adam Hastings who's now one of the top John Lennons. He works with the Fab Four and he works at the Cavern, and he was in the Bootleg Beatles, which is like the premier. It's the premier band in the world, actually. Up there, like the Fab Four and the Bootlegs are kind of the top bands in the States and the UK.
Is he the Lennon I would have seen when I was there? Okay.
Recently, what did you didn't see them last?
In July.
No, that will have been Paul, who took over from Tyson. Tyson's from LA. He there's been a bit of a change in the last few years.
Okay.
So Adam left and started working at the Cavern, and also he's half American, so he can come and work in the States with the Fab Four. And then Tyson Kelly, who is from LA, he moved to the UK and joined the Bootlegs, and then he left and has just started a John Lennon show, which I work for. I play drums in. And a guy called Paul, whose surname has escaped me, but he's taken over, confusingly, as the John.
So people will not, Americans will not know about this, I don't think. Unless they've been to England or they're big Beatles nuts.
Yeah.
There are Beatles covers bands here, obviously, and you just said Fab Four, right? Mm-hmm. It's just different, I think. I've seen one of them here before, and I was like, wow, that was really cool. But, going to Liverpool, I realized, this is, a hardcore thing. Mm-hmm. The guy who played Lennon the night that we were there, he looked...
Oh, sorry, you mean at the Cavern?
The Cavern.
Yeah, that would have been Adam. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely, that was Adam. Sorry, I thought you meant the Bootlegs.
Oh, yeah, no, at the Cavern,
yeah. That's Adam, yeah.
He looks like John.
Yes.
It's convincing.
Yeah, he's like he was born to be a John.
Yeah.
And he I think he knew that. So at music school, he was like, I'm going to set up a Beatles band. And he got my mate Petch in. I didn't know them at the time, and a couple of other guys who don't do it anymore. And then Adam quickly became involved in the Bootlegs, and Petch joined a French Beatles band, weirdly. So he was flying out to France every weekend, doing gigs in France. And then he got a bit tired of that, so then he joined the band that I would later join. And at that time, I was in his band as a sort of singing drummer, doing harmonies on his stuff.
Oh, nice. I didn't know you sang.
Yeah. So I think you kind of have to. Not all Ringos do, but it helps being involved in the Beatles world to get stuck in with some of the harmonies. I really enjoy it.
Every so often you just say a thing that's clearly a part of that world, and when you say not all Ringos do it, those lines, I'm like, there needs to be a movie about this. It could absolutely be a movie.
Oh, there really, really should be. Like a Spinal Tap kind of movie.
All right. All right, Ringos line up here. Just be 30 Ringos.
Yeah.
Did you ever modify your appearance to look like Ringo,
I wear makeup on stage, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So I have a false nose, but I only wore it once. I don't like doing it.
That is such a better answer than I expected. I thought you'd wear certain clothes.
Oh yeah, we wear all the stage clothes.
Right.
So I probably got about 10 different outfits that he wore. And I did try the fake nose thing. It's not for me. I don't like it. So I just sort of darken underneath my nose to try and make it look a bit bigger, sort of like stage makeup. So heavy makeup that you, when you're on the stage, the audience will not really see how heavy it is, but up close it looks quite heavy.
Sure, yeah.
And it's quite important, I think, to do that. You sort of have to. But I don't really look like Ringo, to be honest with you, and I'm not. That side of it hasn't really interested me
as much, the cosplay kind of part.
Yeah, I'm not bothered. I like wearing the suit, like the Ed Sullivan suit. I feel proper dapper in that. That's great. But I much prefer just the playing side of it. That's the bit I'm interested in. So when I was in Petch's band, I found out he'd just joined this band, and I could think of nothing more exciting than having to learn 100 Beatles songs but by rote, like note for note, not just ish, not sort of bar quality playing in a pub band, but super, super, every single note has to be exactly like it is on the record. Like, how cool would that be in terms of just knowing that and artistic development, me as a player, having to learn all of that stuff. I really, really wanted an excuse to do that.
Yeah.
And I was in an originals band at the time, and we just had a record deal that fell apart, and the band kind of finished. And then the drum chair in that show became available, and I kind of loosely auditioned for it, I suppose, and joined it. And that's the start of like the next phase of my career. So I did that for about 9 years, was in that show.
It's just nuts.
Yeah.
In that, did you play at one consistent place, or did you like travel around? Or
travel around. Yeah. So it's like a constant tour. You guys don't really have it so much here, from what I can tell, but we've got so many theatres in the UK where every major city has got numerous theatres, but then loads of provincial towns have also got theatres, and then there's hundreds of them. So every weekend we would be doing anywhere between 1 and 3 shows in random bits of the UK. So, Scotland and Wales and everywhere.
Well, and we do have cover bands that kind of like, and there are some bigger ones that tour around, like there's Led Zeppelin, for instance.
Love that.
And, that does exist. In fact, you and I were talking before the show, and he'll be hopefully on soon, is the guy Chris, he has a Beach Boys cover band.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so it's a thing, but it's not like the same. I don't know how to explain why it's like you see it when you're at a random hotel and they have in a town that doesn't have a music culture, or they're like, that's where cover bands play at like casinos and things that are a little more off the beaten path, but like it's not going to be like a big to do.
Yeah.
It's like the old folks' home needs music, so he's going to have this cover band.
We have a bit of that casino culture. We played at a lot of casinos and dinner and a show nights, so at big hotels where they pay, they pay £100 and they get a nice dinner and then a Beatle band. So we did my fair share of that kind of stuff. But in the main, I think the reason it's become popular in the last, probably 10 to 20 years is because of the 2008 financial crash and everything going down. People have confidence in stuff that they know, so nostalgia. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So suddenly, are you going to go to the theatre and take a risk on something? If you've got £40 to buy a ticket, are you going to take a risk, or are you going to go and see a Beatles show that you know is going to be good?
Right.
So you'll stick with what you know.
That's interesting. You trace it back to 2008.
I think so. Yeah, I think it goes that far back, and that's when I started. Around the time I started working in what you call like theatre land. I did like what we call depping, so like subbing for a Rat Pack, Las Vegas Spectacular kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
I've done Frankie Valli ones. I've done like show tunes, like Broadway kind of show tunes things, all like chart reading gigs. So I've done a lot of theatres for a lot of years before I joined the Beatles show. But now, especially the provincial theatres that are not in the big cities, or you get the little pamphlet that they give you, the program of what's coming up, and it's all just Frankie Valli show, Beatles show, ABBA show, Taylor Swift show, a country show.
Wow.
It's what's popular. And there's so many musicians making their livings out of doing that kind of stuff. And that's what I made my living out of for 8 or 9 years.
It's so bizarre that okay, I saw a video a few days ago, or I should say a reel, an Instagram reel, that was somebody I've never heard of talking about how music hasn't really evolved since, like, I think they said 2010, but around that same time, they were like, and they showed this song that they made back then that was like bizarre, but they're like, where's the new genres of music? And so they showed like, here's a song we made where we tried to do something that was like unlike anything else that was out there, but they were like, no one's. And they were saying like their what would you say, like they're not their high horse, but like their soapbox was like social media, like the same wheel that when the Infinite Scroll came out was like when they trace like genres stopping. Obviously, it's a confluence of lots of social things, but it's interesting that we look back at the 60s, 70s, 80s. They're all like distinct musical times that have all these hit songs that everybody knows. And I think the 90s too, like when we were growing up, there's a lot of really cool stuff. But it just seems like things have slowed down. I've even heard people talk about how like clothing, like our clothes don't look that different than they did 10 years ago. Whereas, like, if you look back at a picture of your parents in the 70s, you're like, whoa, what were you doing? And it's like, for the last, like, 10, 20 years, you show me a picture of a guy 20 years ago, I don't know if we'd be like what you're wearing right now. Somebody would wear that 20 years ago. What I'm wearing right now, like...
Yeah, I think so.
You know what I mean?
I do. I also think that we're in it. So I think that's... When you're in it, you don't feel it. So I think, in the early 2000s, kind of indie and alt rock and pop punk... That was the sound of that era. And I think as time goes on, certain things rise to the top as being defining of that particular decade, if you like, if you want to break it up into decades. But that doesn't mean that they were exclusively the only things that were going on. There was loads going on. The 60s wasn't all beat bands, like we love, but that's because that's what we love about the 60s. That's what we've associated. We have this kind of rose-tinted mentality that it was all just Beatlesy and felt great.
Yeah, and like Austin Powers.
Yeah, and it just wasn't. It was just the normal world. And the same way that kind of now will be defined as probably more like Chapel Rowan style pop music, I think she'll become that kind of style of amalgamated pop music will probably end up being the sound of this era. And maybe like rap kind of grime stuff will become it, like Stormzy, that kind of thing. I think those things will be the things that rise to the top as being defining of the sound of that. Like I went to see a show at the Blue Rooms last night, and there was a band.
Is that
that Third Man?
Third Man's, yeah. What's the guy? Jack White.
Jack White, yeah. And the band, so we went to watch the openers, but the main band, we watched a few of their songs. They were great. I can't remember what they were called now, but they're a really good band. But just such a mixture of influences. And I could pinpoint all of them as being era specific. I could pinpoint, they've got a mixture of, there's some 90s grunge in there. There's some early 2000s alt rock in there. There's some Strokes kind of early 2000s indie in there. And I could pinpoint that, and I know what you're saying. Maybe it's slowed down because we've got so much access. I know you're not saying it; you saw it in a reel, but
yeah. Well, I also am. I mean, I'm sympathetic to that mindset, but you're kind of providing a counterpoint right now that I'm enjoying hearing because I think I'm saturated with the other perspective. So
yeah, I think that's a
go off, King.
I think that we're living in a world now where everything is really accessible. So you can obsess with 70s culture and dress like you're in the 70s and make music like you're in the 70s, and you'll be in your bubble on Instagram, and everything you see will look like it's 70s-y kind of stuff.
Right.
And because we have access to all of this stuff all the time, which maybe in the early 2000s we didn't really, you might subscribe to Kerrang magazine, and you just see that, and you kind of see your tunnel vision thing. Whereas we have access to so much that we can cherry pick influence from everywhere. And I reckon that in 20 years' time, that will be the sound of this era. We'll be able to see it with the benefit of hindsight, to see the holistic picture. Whereas we're the expression, like, you can't see the wood for the trees. Yeah. We are the trees right now. We are that. So we can't see the wood for the trees.
That's an interesting notion. Like, what if our era is looked back as like, oh, that was the era where it all kind of like combined, because all of a sudden people had access to social media and Spotify, and they had all the songs, and no longer you were listening to the radio where you heard whatever the new trend was. You were like, I prefer Fleetwood Mac, and I'm picking my music right now. Yeah, and that's what the algorithm's given me. So, like, will we be looked at as a mishmash era where it all combined?
Absolutely, I think we will. And I what I'm loving as I'm meeting younger, this is kind of makes me feel good, but also makes me feel a little bit sad that as I'm approaching, our generation, we are becoming, we are the changing of the guard. We're the experienced ones now. I'm often the oldest person in the room, which never used to be the case.
Yeah.
But I'm loving working with like 25-year-olds who are listening to music that I listened to when I was 14, and they're listening to it like it's kind of, I don't think they think of it as old music, but they're listening to like Franz Ferdinand and Linkin Park and bands like that, but they're almost as they're fresh. And I think that's great. And that's what you're saying about picking music. I like Fleetwood Mac and I'm picking my own music. An 18-year-old can sit in their bedroom and discover Fleetwood Mac because it will be pushed to the top of their algorithm, or it will be synced on a TV show and they'll discover it. How exciting is that? You're not discovering it. When you discover something in your parents' record collection and you pick it off the shelf, you're not discovering that. That belongs to your parents. That's your parents' music. Sure. Whereas when an algorithm pushes Fleetwood Mac in front of you and you're 18, you found that. That's yours. You have ownership over that. So I think that this really is going to be the mishmash era where suddenly older music is going to almost have that ownership. People will have that ownership over the music in the way that they never did before because it belonged to their parents.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I'm like self-reflecting in this moment and just feeling like you're sort of representing to some degree an optimistic perspective about not only our current time but maybe also the future. And I'm reflecting. I'm just going, how much of my current outlook on life has grown a little bit cynical, and then how much of that is because of my own age and just changing into a new phase of life versus how much of that is the algorithm, is social media. But I think I don't know what your algorithm is, but I am surrounded by right now, this week's trend is the AI bubble's going to burst any day and the economy's going to tank, but like, it's obviously Donald Trump fills all of our feeds. Obviously, this might be interesting to talk about or not. I don't know. But like, I'm hearing a lot about like, in England, they're arresting people for their social media. And I'm hearing about, so there's the political space is its own clusterfuck all the time. But then you're hearing about AI is going to take all of our jobs. It's going to destroy everything. We're not going to have music anymore. It's only going to be made by machines. All of this negative stuff. And then even that video I just said, it's like one more thing, like no one's creating anything new anymore. And, but I think about like, if you were 14 right now, where you had to like have an ongoing vision of the future that you're like, I haven't even entered into my life yet. First of all, like, sucks to be you. I do like, if you're getting access to that information all the time, like, I hope that they're protected from that, because you need to have a vision of the future that's like positive and something you're interested in being involved in. But then again, like, if you have that 14-year-old enthusiasm, you just want to get out there and do it. Yeah. You're probably not viewing all of it as there's, to some degree, I am mourning the monoculture. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Like, the fact is, like, next to you, I have What's the Story, Morning Glory. Mm-hmm. And that album was part of the monoculture. Some people people are talking about Oasis, like, a lot recently. Yeah. A lot of people are like, that was the last one, the last time. And I don't necessarily agree with that with being the last time or the last one. But there's definitely a lot of people who are like, that was the last time there was this, like, major album that everybody was in on. And that's not fully true, but we have to a large degree lost that monoculture element of, like, there could be a band that's massive in the US and you'll know about it in England too. We're both going to know about it. And globally, it's going to get fed out to everyone. And so, like, everyone's going to know who Madonna is. Like, I can assume you'll know who Madonna is. And nowadays, like, that's just less true than it ever was. And I think it is scary to lose that feeling of, like, if I meet you off the street, there's going to be some things we share. Like, you definitely watch The Office if you're of a certain age. Yeah. And that's different now. Like, there's so many fucking shows. Like, you and I haven't seen the same shows. No. Do you know what I mean? Like, we'd be lucky if we find one newer show we both watch. So we're kind of, I'm coming all off of your 2008 financial crisis thing. I'm just like, there is such, like, a longing for nostalgia now to where things felt safe in the monoculture. And yet, that ship has probably sailed and was probably not coming back, and you probably have to become enthusiastic about whatever it is we are going to have.
I don't know,
Yeah.
So we were saying I listened to this podcast called The Rest is Entertainment, and they were talking about Strictly Come Dancing. So you guys call it Dancing with the Stars.
Okay, yeah.
And how... So
your version is called Strictly
Come Dancing.
Strictly Come Dancing. I see why they changed the name for us. That makes no sense to me.
It doesn't make any sense in England. It's from when the show was on in, I guess, 70s or 80s. That's what it was called. I don't know why it was called that, but it's one of those things that we've just accepted.
Yeah.
So this is just an example of what I want to talk about. In the US, the show experienced a dip, and in the last few years, I'm getting the statistics all wrong, but something like the audience of under 30s in the last 2 or 3 seasons of the show has gone up like 300%. So this one particular show that's on at one particular time, Saturday night, has experienced a massive jump in the amount of under 30s that are watching that show, which completely goes against what we've just been discussing.
Yeah.
And the reason that's happened is because of Reels. So Strictly have realized,
sure,
Dancing with the Stars.
I'll fuck with Strictly.
Strictly
Come Dancing.
Yeah. It's realized that it's a very, very reelable show. You get famous people doing things that are making them feel uncomfortable, but very well. You can make a reel out of that. You can make a reel out of the scores and the reactions and the emotions behind it all. Yeah. That's how under 30s consume stuff. So then they realize, like, hold on a second, there's a 2-hour show on Saturday nights that's just this reel. I want to watch that. And they've done it. It's actually happened. The numbers are there. That's the proof. And that will happen. Strictly Come Dancing in the UK has their hosts are about to leave at the end of this season. So that will happen over the next 2 or 3 years in the UK too. They are going to start making reels out of the show, and it will start with a new generation. The same things happen with Traitors, the show Traitors.
Mm-mm.
I don't know if it's how big it is over here, but I forgot I was in America for a second then. In the UK, the show called The Traitors is massive. It's like the biggest rating show of all year. It's huge. It's like a murder mystery kind of show, and they've just done one with celebrities, and it's been off the scale in terms of modern day numbers. And we as human beings crave community and crave that Saturday night thing that probably won't come back exactly how it was, but that was a nice thing. We like that, huddling up on a Saturday night, getting a takeaway, watching, whatever crap on Saturday night TV is there.
And being able to talk about it the next time, like, did you see it? Like,
yeah.
Well, who did it at the end?
Exactly. And it won't be exactly like before, but we will naturally come back round to it. Everything's cyclical. Human instinct, and these kind of like what's it called? Black thingy on
Black Mirror?
Yeah, Black Mirror. Black Mirror type stuff. I haven't thought about this up until now, but human instinct trumps everything. That's we are always going to gravitate towards what it is that we really, really want. That's human nature. And we want connection and community. And, you look what COVID was a bad time for a lot of people, but it brought so much good out of a lot of people.
Right.
And that's kind of what will happen in terms of all this stuff that we're going through right now. The pace of change is so rapid, but we will inevitably, young people now will realize that actually scrolling on their phone is not good for me. And what I really want to do is connect with people in reality. So that will become, I don't know how it will manifest, but it will turn into some trend. There'll be a trend of like an anti-phone trend, or
I've been hearing about it.
Yeah,
apparently there's like retreats.
Oh, right. Well, okay.
They're like selling out.
Oh, great. Well, this is exactly it then. So I didn't know that existed, but these things will start to become, there will be a wave like of stuff, because because they're not stupid. They're not. I think, and this has happened. Every generation of people will be like, "Oh, I feel so sorry for the young'uns," going up.
Right.
That's happened always. Every generation that's happening, and this is no different. We're just experiencing quite like cataclysmic change. It's huge and it's fast, and it's scary. Because there's a lot of dangerous stuff about social media.
Right.
But it will come back round.
Yeah. Well, and the prognostications are super crazy and very hard to wrap your mind around. Specifically like AI. Like AI, but it's just tough. Like I was listening to an interview the other night with his name's Tristan. It might be Harris, or it was just Tristan something. Mm-hmm. Did you see that show, The Social Dilemma? It was a Netflix.
I've heard of this, but I've never watched it. Yeah, it's Netflix. I've seen the thumbnail, but I've not watched it.
Came out perfect time in 2020, and anyway, it's all about the social media, and the epidemic. Anyway, he was talking about AI on a podcast, and he's like, this is different because it changes everything about everything. Like any other technology that we've had is, if somebody invented the printing press like that, that took away a lot of people's jobs who maybe did whatever, hand scribed or whatever it was they were doing before the printing press, right? But it didn't affect every layer of society, whereas AI is actually kind of going to affect everything all at once, is at least what they're prognosticating. Yeah. So you hear that one side. One part of the argument about AI is that it's actually different than anything we've ever had before in every way, and it's going to completely transform things, and this is different, right? But then like rewind 50, 60 years, and everybody was very worried about nuclear bombs. And there's still something to be worried about there. They still exist, and still like, I play through scenarios in my head from time to time where I'm like, if a nuclear bomb went off in Nashville, what would I do?
I do the same.
As a man, you have to plan.
Yes.
you have to have a route. You're like, okay, the highways will be so jammed with people. Like, I got to like get out quick. Like, am I going to go check on my family and make sure they're okay and get them too? Or are they, on their own and it's best for us to all, like,
every man for themselves.
Or if I'm at the studio, like, what if Ashley's at home?
Yeah.
And this would be a pretty good fallout shelter.
Yeah.
So I'm like, anyway, so you think through those things. But back in the 50s and 60s, that wasn't like something that you would like laugh about. That you're like, I was thinking about nuclear bombs. Isn't that crazy that I think about that? No, they were like making kids do drills in school, and everybody, it was like a very present danger. And I think a lot of people believed by the year 2000 that things would be nuked out and we'd all be living in fallout shelters.
Yeah.
And of course that hasn't happened. And so I do think whenever I take a grander perspective, I don't think it's ever as bad as what the doomsday people say. It's also never as good as the utopia people say.
No.
And there's definitely people, I just heard another thing about AI where people are like, it could turn into everyone's rich and no one works and you just pursue your interests in your heart. And,
that won't happen.
And I'm like, utopias never work out either.
No.
But it is more likely that it's some weird blend where it's like, music's not gone for, I can't see music going away forever.
Oh, music, I think exactly what I've just said about the retreat stuff you were talking about with like kids and phones, that's going to happen with music, that there's going to be a premium put on people that make music in the way that you and I make music.
Yes.
And
I hope so.
I think it's a certainty. I don't even hope about it. Like I see it.
Yeah. Tell me about it. Paint the vision, man.
Well, like Logic Drummer has existed. When I first started my studio, like I do remote sessions is my main bread and butter. And when I first had that idea, well, it was not an idea, I knew it existed, but I have this kind of image in my head that, I have a family. I don't want to be on the road constantly. I want to be able to pick and choose my road gigs, and I want to make my living being creative, working on new music, but I want to do it from near where I live.
Yeah.
So I had this vision, and I was told, not like tons, but by quite a lot of people, like, that Logic has a drummer thing. That exists, right? And that Virtual Drummer exists, and that I don't even know the names of them because I don't use any of them, obviously.
Right.
But
and Aaron Sterling selling sample packs.
Yeah. And they're sort of saying you're going to be superfluous in 10 years. Like people just won't need a drummer. That's just not true.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened. And if anything, more people are making music, and there's plenty of drummers earning money, either part of their living or their whole living off playing on people's songs. So that just hasn't happened. And I think that what will happen with AI is this happened. I can't think of another situation where this is an example of this, but essentially it will get rid of the lower tier of people who are working in this industry. So there's been a huge boom because the barrier to entry has been much lowered with things like audio interfaces and that kind of stuff. So the barrier to entry in the recording world, even from the 90s, is so much lower now. Everyone has the capability to make some music now. And therefore, everyone thinks, there's that meme of, now I have an interface and like I'm a mixer, you know, and that's it's funny, but it is also a bit true. Especially in kind of things like library music world and that kind of stuff where it's sort of generic music. All that will turn into AI. There's no doubt about that. But that's a very low level of people earning their living off that music. It's not particularly high quality music that's being made. Yeah, I guess
just for anybody who's not in music, like when you say library music, you mean like for people pulling for like commercials and stuff like that, and
so like
music that's never that good anyway.
Yeah, so it will be the stuff that is getting used now is things that are on the backgrounds of YouTube videos or reels or so it's like stock music that sits underneath. Say you're showing off a new video camera and you have some generic kind of lift music in the background, like Muzak, that just sits underneath. And that's kind of what library music is, the smallest bit of it, the bit I'm talking about. So that will turn into AI for sure.
Somebody's in a reality show and they're doing something sneaky and it goes, bum, 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 bum.
Yeah, it's exactly that. That's it. And so there's tons of people who've made their living for the last 20 years, 30 years off that kind of stuff. And they're not making their living off of that anymore because it's music by numbers. It's so uninspiring and easy to make if you're kind of that way inclined, that they will stop making that. That will just stop. I don't think that's too bad of a thing. I kind of think what we'll be left with is the people who are creative, making interesting things. We're almost having a bit of a clean. Because those people, I don't want to be negative on them, but they're not in it for the music. They're in it for the money. It's about money for them. So to me, that's okay.
Well, and ironically, I think so many people who are trying to do music because they care about it, because they want to be creative, they found that it's very hard to make money from doing creative things. And so they had this avenue, was like, well, at least I can be doing my thing over here. And it's very practical. It's funny that would be what goes. It's actually probably kind of better for the world that it would become more of a premium. I mean, that is a hopeful idea that it would become premium to make creative, original music, because that is what everybody wants in the beginning.
Yes. I mean, I think that in the beginning, that's like a teenage fantasy. It's quite almost a complicated thought of all of this stuff. So I think some of those people that we're talking about, with generic, putting people in, these are broad brushstrokes that we're talking about at the minute, but they will have had a teenage fantasy like we all did about being a musician. And then they kind of realized that actually, maybe they play guitar and they were in a band and they're like, I read magazines, music magazines, and I think it'd be cool to be a musician. And then they realize the reality of what being a musician is. And they're like, actually, probably not for me, but they can't let go of the fact that. So that's in your words there. That's the bit where they go, it's really hard to make make a living in a creative way. That's that moment,
right?
And rather than admit to themselves that music's probably not for them, they go and make library music because it's just a job, and they can still feel like they're living that teenage fantasy because they're still involved in music. But actually, it's just a job. It could be any job. They could be doing something else. And it is just a job bit of it. So in my my view is that they're not the same as the way I approach what I want to do. You know, I've kind of reached every bit that's hard and realized that I still want to do this. I still love it so much that I'm willing to take risks on financial risks because I love this so much. Yeah. That never at any point have I been content with just accepting that I make a living out of music somehow. You know, that's not what I want. I very specifically want the thing that I want, which is being creative.
Yeah.
And so I think that those people really, they don't care that much about the music. They just like music and they need to make a living. So that's what they've ended up doing. And I don't think by that same token, they will not be that bothered that their living goes.
Yeah.
They'll be like, okay, cool, well, I'll just go and do something else. And, you know, they might be a bit disappointed, obviously.
Right.
You know, no one likes to
lose
change.
your job.
No.
But, like, to your point, like, AI is potentially a cleansing agent. Mm-hmm. So I thought about the same thing. I'm hoping that my brain fills in what it is that I thought was really similar. In Nashville, though, when I got into music, you know, doing it professionally, the 2000s had happened with like the rise of Napster and everything. So I remember this I thought about this a lot in college because I got an audio degree. I'm thinking everything we talk about right now is that recorded music doesn't make money anymore, and that all these major studios are failing, and that there's less and less of it than ever before, and so anyway, and I'm like, what? I'm like, you know, there's just a part of you that's like, well, fuck, I mean, I want to do this and I'm getting my degree in it and I guess I'm going to just go for it. Hopefully I can be the one in the million, you know what I mean? But, and all the older guys that I learned from are like, yeah, back in the 90s, you got so much money, you know, and I still wish that were true. But, you know, I committed to no, it's what I want to do. And so here I am doing it. Well, I have thought a number of times, I'm like, well, you know, I do think the fact that it's not as lucrative as it used to be is actually really good in a way. And the way is that it knocks off the people who are in it for the wrong reasons, mm-hmm. who are just trying to make money. Mm-hmm. And I do think that in genres where there is more money to be made, you find more people that have less like artistic integrity. And those genres still do exist. And actually, I think in the time that I've been in Nashville, country music has boomed. And it was already like big, but and very big here, but it's just boomed and boomed to the point where when we went to the UK, I had lots of people like, oh, I'm really into country music right now.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Like we met people and they know like the rising stars of Nashville. Like mm-hmm. we talked to this guy from Speak.
Okay.
In line for Oasis. Yeah. And so he was like, oh, I love country music. He didn't do I can't do y'all's accents. And so, but he like knew different artists that I've had here at the studio for podcasts. He was like, oh yeah, I listen to them. Oh, I know them. And I'm like, wow, you know, these like rising up and coming people. Anyway, I do think that there tends to be more chicanery and bullshit when there is money to be made, and you get more people who may not be like in it because they love it, but because there's a buck to be made.
Of course.
But to your point with AI, like potentially there's maybe some upside of getting rid of some of the low-hanging fruit of music.
Yeah, and I don't think AI is going to. I don't think for a second it's going to replace things that we listen to. Like, we've heard AI bands, you know, the Spotify stuff. It's fine, but we might get the odd bit on the radio that kind of comes through. I think that it will be a thing that exists. But
my father-in-law sent me one this week, me and my wife, and he may listen to the show. Hi, Gary, if you're listening. And so he sent one. He's like, oh, this guy has a really soulful voice. And so I listened to it, and it was really good, actually.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is of my brain. Was it like, it just must be being around music all the time. But I had the uncanny valley. And his picture on Spotify, I was like, oh, I think this is AI. And I had to do some like Google work to get to the bottom of it to figure it out. But I mean, they do have it at a point where it can sound. There was no artificial robot soundiness. It did sound like a real person.
Oh, yeah.
But the recording was too pristine.
Yeah.
It was like too good. It sounded like really, really, like way too good.
We all like bubblegum pop, but I talked to my kids about sugary food, and it's fun. It's fun to eat sweets. We like eating sweets. We like eating McDonald's. We like eating takeaway food. But there's no nutritional value in it. It's just tasty. It's a taste, and we like it. But if you eat that all the time, you're not getting any substance. And music's the same. If you listen to sugary bubblegum pop all the time, it's great. It's a great experience, but there's no heart and soul there. And that's what when we find artists that we truly connect with, it's artists that have heart and soul. And I think that's the case for AI, that I don't think it's scary that it can replicate exactly what it is that we like in music. That a painter, the fact that AI can make a painting and it generate an image that looks like a painting, like, great, cool. But there's nothing there to latch onto as a human being, because we're looking at surface level details. That yes, it sounds nice. They've managed to make it sound human, great. But that's not why we listen to music. We listen to music for the underneath stuff, and AI simply can't do that. There's no way ever, because it's not a human, will it ever have the unique set of experiences that every individual human has. Your story is different to my story. Two twins will have different stories and experiences of the world. That's mad. And one of the most beautiful things about being a human being is that everyone's story is so different.
Right.
And I think that a good example I use, I'm sort of swinging around a little bit, but a good example I like to talk about with people sometimes is when one of my kids was 3, or for example, if they drew me a picture, you cherish that picture. I have on my phone, I've got like a little note that my kids wrote to me last time I came here, actually, that just says like, "I love you, Daddy," and whatever. And it's, the handwriting's a bit bad, and the love hearts that they drew are crap. But so when I found it in my luggage, because they didn't tell me they'd put it there, you get teary-eyed, because it's the sentiments there. It doesn't matter that it's a bit crap and wobbly, like technically speaking. And that's what I love about music. It's so, especially in the social media world, this ties into everything, because the sort of perfectionism thing, and the anxiety that a lot of young people are feeling, and I'm sure that you and I certainly do feel it at times. And the sort of benchmark for stuff is so set now with what's on social media, and we're missing the point completely on so much of this stuff, that there's no right ever at all. It's just about feeling. Talk about Ringo. That's what I love about Ringo, that he plays like Ringo plays.
Yeah.
He can't scroll on social media and have anxiety about a different drummer, because he's Ringo. He plays like Ringo. We are all individually, to extend that metaphor, we are all our own little Ringos. I've never been prouder of a metaphor. We all are those things, and we just have to have the self-confidence in what it is that we are, and to give ourselves the enough love to allow whatever it is that we are going to do to bloom. Whereas we're now bombarded with like people doing all of this stuff, and we think, should we be doing that? And the answer is no. Anyway, back to AI. AI doesn't have any of that. It doesn't have the ability to be a unique being. So it simply can't be that. And I think as a society, we are going to progress. We are progressing in an emotional way at the moment. We're not progressing in like it's not like the Industrial Revolution. This is like the emotional revolution, that we're tapping into what does it mean to be a human being, and what does that mean in terms of our lives and the way we live our lives and the way we choose to spend our time. So that's what's happening right now is the questions that are going to get asked over the next 5 or 10 years with the advent of AI are, what does it mean to be a human? What does it, from our point of view in terms of creativity, what does it mean to create? What does it mean to be an artist? What do we value in art? Do we value a shiny pop beat and a catchy chorus that AI can just give you like that? Sometimes we like that, but is that really valuable? no is the answer, because there's no substance to it. So I think they're the questions that are going to have to get asked. And I don't know what the answers to those questions will be, because it will end up being some fairly major shift in, I mean, it will be very slow and steady, but there will be a big shift in the way that we live in the world. That we won't have a choice. There is no solution that doesn't involve major change in the way we live our lives. But I think that to me is the exciting part of it. That, you know, for people that have mainstream jobs, normal jobs, they are not going to be defined by their work anymore. You know, they will be able to go home and not think about their work. You know, we're reaching a crisis point where all public services, schools, hospitals, nurses, police, fire, everybody that works in a sort of vocational job is being squeezed, and it's going to have to stop. I think it will. I don't think it will stop next year or the year after, but hopefully in 30, 40 years, you know.
When you say squeezed, you mean like just financially,
or every
not being paid enough and expenses rising?
Yeah, and being more and more of their time being demanded of like, you know, they're being asked to do things that they shouldn't do, take work home with them, specifically school teachers, you know, take their work home with them. And I think we're gonna have to respect people a lot more than we have done over the years. And I think people are emotionally maturing and waking up to the fact that, hold on, I can't be expected to take this home. I'm not being, you know, compensated enough to take this home with me. All right, I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. Or if they're you know, this is the beginning. You know, this is certainly not the case always. But, you know, if you're a nurse and you're dealing with pretty high emotionally driven situations, you're going to need to find ways to process that. And I think employers are recognizing that we're not a means to an end in terms of like bodies making money for people. You know, we're humans, and, you know, if a nurse has experienced something pretty traumatic, they're going to maybe need to have some speaking therapy or whatever works for them. I don't know.
Yeah.
And that, I think we're at the very beginning of this journey into an emotional revolution. I think that's quite a good way of thinking about it, to be honest. I've never thought about it. That's just come out like it has now. But
yeah,
I think an emotional revolution is where we're at. And that's where AI doesn't frighten me at all, because AI can't have emotion. And so therefore it's forcing humans to distill what it is to be a human and put value on that.
I think this is like a really cool way to think about it. There's like a decision tree in my head of like where to go next, and one of the decisions is my, like, not a counter argument exactly, but almost like a devil's advocate.
Oh yeah.
But I actually just believe what you said, and I really want to believe what you said. Okay, but like my like counterfactual would be, but what if the AI does transcend? If we get, you know, what they're calling AGI, where artificial general intelligence, where it actually achieves some sort of consciousness like what a human has. And so, like, did you ever see that Steven Spielberg movie AI that came out like 20-some years ago?
No.
I didn't either. We started it in a class I was in, and it looked cool. But they had Haley Joel Osment playing a little AI robot kid.
Okay.
And I think it's very much about the emotions of like, wait, is he real or not? And he feels like he's real, but others are like, no, you're an AI, you know? And so, but if we get to the point where we have like good enough robots with like real, like, if they can actually achieve consciousness, at what point that fucks you up more when you're like, wait, at what point are they actually their own being? But I'm like, what if one of those future AIs in a robot kind of a thing, what if that AI does go and live a journey, live a story, you know, meander around New York City and, you know, get beat up and become homeless for a while and develop some sort of crazy story and then go on to The Voice and share their story? And I don't know. Like, at what point, I don't know if it's even worth discussing, but I think we're decently far out from that being a reality. But there's at some point, there's like some threshold that's crossed Where then what is it? What does it mean to be human then?
Well, I think that before we get to that point, we have to unify as a world to make sure that we don't get there. If that's a genuine reality, if that's a genuine possibility that could happen, I struggle to. I mean, I'd be happy to eat my words if it came to it, but I struggle to imagine a situation where that would be the case, because the point is that the word robot is still there. There's still an off button.
Have you heard the term clanker?
No.
It's a joke on social media.
Clanker.
Yeah, that is going to be our pejorative slur for robots.
Right.
You clanker.
I like that. I don't know. I don't think it will get there, because I think people might develop emotional attachments to these things, but it's just a thing still.
Right.
But I think that it's in the same way that the mobile phone thing is getting a little bit out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
There is no choice now but for governments to step in and deal with it is detrimental to people's health, especially young people. They are dangerous. They have dangerous access to lots of stuff on the internet, and the governments worldwide will have no choice but to legislate to help parents deal with the mobile phone issue and social media and all that kind of stuff. That has to happen. I can't see a different solution to that at the minute.
What's interesting is you actually live in a country that might.
I think it's going to happen, yeah.
I think from my limited 3-week experience in the UK, part of the thing that I picked up on is I think I couldn't see our country doing it.
Maybe not right now. Certainly not under Trump, no.
But even outside of Trump, even if Biden was in office or whoever the next person's going to be, I think there's a fundamental difference in UK politics and US politics. Is that, imagine every locality it's because we have so many different governments between all of our states, and they're so counterbalanced.
Yeah.
That at its best, it stops crazy excesses, and at its worst, it stops any progress at all. But one thing I noticed in the UK is it's you're so much more centralized. Mm-hmm. That it seems like your government makes decisions that I'm oh, that would never fucking fly here. It's we go and throw all the tea into the ocean if that happens. We're no, fuck you.
Yeah.
But it's but part of it's though that could fly in Texas or it could fly in California, but not both. They're going to be dead set against each other.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So we kind of it's different.
I just think that, they will reach a point where, on the mobile phone thing, for example, it will get faster. There will have to be an understanding in the world to a point for everyone to do it where they go okay, we can't even argue with this now. It's so clearly obvious that this needs to happen.
Right.
What it will be for the next few years is the odd place. So the UK will do it. Maybe some countries in Europe will do it. I think Australia's already done it, banned phones for under 16s or social media accounts. And then maybe the odd state will do it here. And then before you know it, it'll be like the smoking ban thing. Eventually there'll be no choice there.
But we don't have that.
Oh, no, not banned completely.
Right.
In public spaces.
We don't have that. But some places do.
Yes. Okay.
And some places don't. And that's the thing is our divisiveness. So let me give you an example. This is my least favorite thing about the UK that I've experienced, that I personally experienced, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, I only experienced a very small subset. Least favorite thing about the UK after the barrister is, which I don't even know if that's in the podcast, but anyway, least favorite thing is the cameras.
Yes.
That give you tickets automatically.
I've had other American friends tell me the same.
Oh, they could fuck that to hell. Dude, do you want to know how many tickets I got in 3 weeks?
Oh, go on.
6.
Wow.
Right? How many have you gotten in the whole of your life? Have you ever gotten that in the whole of your life?
Speeding tickets, never.
Yeah.
I never got one.
So I mean, but here's the thing. Here's how you get a ticket. You do a bad thing and a cop catches you in the act. And they decide it's bad enough that they want to take the time out of their day to go chase you down the road, to pull you over and go through all that bullshit. So I got a ticket in the UK, for instance, that was going 59 and a 50. Mm-hmm. In the United States of America, almost no cop in their right mind would pull somebody over for going 59 and a 50. They want to find somebody who's going 70 and get a real ticket. They're like 59, okay, go on your way, sir. Like, you know what I mean? And like maybe they're looking at their phone when I go by, you know what I mean? Like when you think about it, it's almost like it's a kind of a stupid system that we do it that way, that we're like, no, you only get in trouble if somebody chases you and if they catch you.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes, in a certain mindset, it makes a lot more logical sense that a camera would just be like, nope, these are the rules. I got another one for being inside of a thing that we don't have.
Oh, it was like a box junction.
Yeah, box junction. I've never seen such a thing. And then I got a ticket. But the thing, so that people in the U.S. who haven't experienced this, I'm driving through a thing, and I was just driving through the thing, obeying, like just trying to be good at doing traffic. And I was driving in the middle of London, which is a fool's errand.
Yeah.
And
lots of box junctions there.
Yeah. And then they just literally, a camera saw it and sent it to the guy who I rented the car from. And then he hit me up and he's like, hey, sorry, Ryan, another one's come through. Me and him had the funnest relationship, because my whole trip, he'd be like, sorry, another ticket's come through. Over and over. And I'm like, what is wrong with your country? And he's like, I'm sorry, I hate them too. They're stealing them.
It's weird.
So they tried to do that here. So, and I'm from San Diego, California. We got traffic lights for a while. It was only red light cameras is where it started. We got red light cameras. It lasted for like 2 or 3 years, and then people sued the city and said, this is bullshit, and they had to pull them all down. So that's the difference between the US and the UK, is like, I shouldn't say it that strongly because I don't know it to be true. I just like, one of my experiences, it suggests to me that things here that start like in one place, there's very few things that come down top down. We've had a few that come top down where all of a sudden it's like a radical change of the whole nation, but they're very few. It usually starts on a state, and if people don't like it, it doesn't take hold, and then it's not going to go across the nation. So I love the UK. I need to say, like, it was like my favorite thing. It's like an alternate version of America. Everything's like similar but opposite. But different and better and amazing, and I had such a great time. But I felt the eye of the government via its cameras. Even when I wasn't getting in trouble, I'm like, what is the speed limit supposed to be right now? It says there's cameras everywhere. I'm like, I'm like literally trying to do the right thing and just fucking up over and over and over again.
Especially in London, that's how you feel. London's really bad for it. I've driven in London a lot, and I'm comfortable with it. But if I was driving with my wife, and if she was driving and I was in the car, she'd be terrified. First few times I gigged in London and I drove down there, it was terrifying because there's red light cameras everywhere, there's box junction cameras. You know, like if the traffic in front of you is moving, you've gone through the traffic lights, it's on green, so you can go through, but there's a queue of traffic on the other side.
Exactly what happened to me.
Yeah, and you're like, you can see the car in front moving, so you think, by the time I get across this box junction, that will have gone. And if they suddenly stop, you're like, well, no shit, you can't stop. And the car behind you has come with you. So then you're just like, well, I'm stuck now.
Right.
What can I do?
But these cameras are the equivalent of AI. It's a thing, it's a computer, and it goes, you have been in the box junction, pay us money. Versus in the US, if a police officer sees that, they're going to be like, oh, I see what happened there. Like, that guy doesn't need to pay money to the government right now. That's absurd. Like, he's just doing his best job.
I appreciate that. And I have it here, driving here, you know, even driving to yours, because I was just been seeing a friend playing on Broadway, and driving up literally through the center of town. I'm the traffic light thing of like being able to turn right on a red sort of confuses me a bit.
Oh, right.
Because it's a red.
Oh, yeah. Doesn't it fuck you up being on the other side of the road and
yeah? So there's a few things,
car.
and the way that you turn off, and they have those kind of yellow lanes in the middle where the arrows appear, and you can then go in that lane. But sometimes I've thought I need to turn left soon. So maybe I'll just pull into that lane, and I realize that other people on the other side can also use that lane.
Yes, yeah.
And that's terrifying. So there's been a few things like that, but I feel what you just described, that's my nature. So I'm driving thinking, I think something happened on the way here, like either I drove through an amber or I can't remember what it was, but something made me have that feeling of like, gee, I don't think I was supposed to do whatever I just did.
Yeah, sure.
And I haven't considered what you've just said of actually it's fine.
Yeah.
Because to me, there's cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
That's what my default is that I'm being watched permanently. And it's just that's not the case here.
No one's watching you, Joe. No one knows you did that. And you have to have a police officer right there happen to see you and decide it's worth his time.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I haven't ever really mulled on that because I don't know what's right. I think the thing... Yeah. The thing with kind of bureaucracy and health and safety gone mad in the UK is more just about like if you're driving 59 in a 50 or 39 in a 30, we're in such a small, densely populated island that you are very likely to kill somebody. It's just a thing.
So pulling it back from this tangent, so you went into this Beatles cover band.
Like a 2-hour tangent. Love it.
Whole podcast is a tangent. What? Tell me about your time in the Cavern Club. I'm not really trying to like exactly recap the story, but like,
yeah.
What is your experience at the Cavern Club? For us, it was just a thing on a trip, and it was like super magical. We saw a Beatles cover band. Dude, I think I went there before I saw you. So I probably told you, like, I had such an emotional reaction.
Yeah.
Because their John looks, Adam looks exactly like John, talks exactly like John. Like, he's just like the spitting image. Mm-hmm. He looks more similar to John than John's own children.
Yeah, true.
Meanwhile, the Paul McCartney isn't like a dead ringer visually of Paul McCartney. Tony, but his voice
he's incredible.
Is identical. Mm-hmm. And I knew this would be true then, and it was true. We just saw Paul McCartney a few weeks ago. A life-changing experience. But Tony sounds more like old Paul McCartney than current Paul McCartney does.
Yeah.
Because current Paul McCartney's 80-something.
Yeah.
When we saw them at the Cavern Club and they came out in the I think they started with the black turtlenecks.
Yeah, they
look,
do, yeah.
And it was an emotional experience because it felt like we were seeing the real Beatles. It hit. It was enough like the real thing. So you spent time doing that very thing and putting on a fake nose, I guess, sometimes.
One time.
Yeah.
I mean, I played in that band that you saw. I worked with them. Yeah. It's those guys are sort of battle hardened to it because they play every Friday and Saturday. That's like their main thing. And if any one of them were sat here, yeah, all right, it's their job and they kind of lark about and probably take it for granted quite a lot. But realistically, if any one of them was sat here talking to you, they would tell you exactly what I'm about to say, which is it's a really special place, and they feel emotional being there too, and as they would. Maybe on a Friday and when they're tired and it's 11:30 and they've got another set to do, they won't think about it. But if push came to shove, deep down they really they find it emotional too. They're there because they're Beatle nerds like we are, and they love it. The first time I ever went there, so it was always when I joined Beatle World. Yeah. It was always on my kind of bucket list of things. Like one of these days, I want to work at the Cavern. That's going to be one of the things I want to achieve in this in this sort of line of work. And the band that I was in, for a little while didn't have a permanent John Lennon character. So one of the guys that used to work with us was a guy called Clark Gilmore, who runs Liverpool's International Beatle Week, which runs in August. so he works at the Cavern in the office, but he also sings. He's a John Lennon, so he does like what we call like acoustic slots at the Cavern. So he'll go down and do like 11 till 1, and then go back up to the office and work booking bands for the club and stuff. Clark's brilliant. He writes great original music too. He's one of my favorite people. And so he used to work with our show, and they occasionally on Wednesday, randomly, it always seemed to be Wednesdays, they would have like corporate clients come in. So maybe a company often it would be like a US company will have flown their employees over to the Cavern or to Liverpool, and they'd have had like some sort of treat trip where they go onto the sands and play golf in Birkenhead, and then come down and have a night out at the Cavern on a Wednesday, and maybe they've gone out for dinner. And we would be the band for that. So that was on like a Wednesday evening. So that was my first experience of working at the Cavern, was with Clark and the band I was with, playing those sort of corporate nights, if you like.
Yeah.
And then eventually, Chris, who is the drummer at the Cavern, Chris Sharrock, he works with Noel Gallagher. So when Noel Gallagher had some busy time promoting his album and what have you over the last sort of 5 or 6 years, fortunately, I was asked to cover for him quite a lot, and that was really fun. And still do occasionally, although he's not as, I don't, obviously Noel's out with Oasis in a minute, so Chris has not done it.
So it makes you the drummer of Oasis's replacement.
In a way, yeah.
Do you think, did that put you on the long list of Oasis drummers for Live 25?
Maybe if it kind of got down into 3 figures, I'd be there somewhere. So yeah, like covering for Chris was awesome. So then eventually I was asked to do some stuff like that. So when Chris was busy, I would go and play with, they are just called the Cavern Club Band, because there is another band called the Cavern Beatles, which are associated with the Cavern, but they're like a touring band who play small theatres. And the Cavern Club Beatles are the ones that
confusing.
Play. It is. Yeah. What happened was there was a Beatle band. I'm talking like I really know. What I understand is that the Cavern Beatles were called the Cavern Beatles because that was just a cool name. And then when the Cavern Club really started to get traction again and be a tourist attraction kind of thing, they weren't comfortable with the fact that there was this Beatle band going out called the Cavern Beatles. So they, rather than just go like, well, you can't exist anymore, you've got to change your name, they just went, why don't you just be associated with us, which helps everybody, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So that was a nice way to solve that issue, and they're a really great band. So then the Cavern Club Beatles are the ones that play in the club on a Friday and a Saturday. So yeah, I got asked to do that, and that's been something that's been really fun to do. And it's you go into that space, and it's full of memorabilia, and it's obviously it's very slightly different to what it is, but you can't hide the fact that it's the Cavern Club, and like from yourself. It's so special. The Beatles are so part of our world culture. They are so entrenched in us that the idea that they've been, Paul McCartney's played on that stage, the new stage that exists now. He's done shows on it, and it's so special. I'll never get tired of being in that room and being part of that. It's a really cool bubble to be in.
Do you ever look out at the people in the crowd? Like, do you see people having emotional reactions to it?
Yeah, absolutely. And even not at the Cavern, like at other venues too, Beatle music just has that power. It means it's not just surface level for people. The Beatles really means something personal to so many people. And everyone has their own relationship to it. And I think that's the bit that makes it special when you go and work there. That yes, all right, there's been times when I've done 3-4 weeks on the trot covering, so been there every week, and you worked there plenty of times now that you kind of just take it in your stride. But someone in that audience has traveled from Brazil to go to the Cavern, and to them it's a huge deal. And it's your responsibility to make it that special, and you know that. You know that when you're working there, and that's really, really lovely to be part of someone's lifelong memory, because that's how important the Beatles are to people. That trip to the cavern, it makes me laugh when I say, you know, like, I work at the cavern sometimes, and to me that's just, well, it's just all right, it's the Cavern Club, but it's only an hour and a half from where I live, and yeah, I work there sometimes. I don't really think much about it, but yeah, people will travel. I've spoken to people from the States who've been involved in Beatle-y kind of music, and they've moved heaven and earth to be able to do a gig at the Cavern.
Yeah.
And that's how much it means to people. And I don't take that for granted, having, you know, in the sort of relatively small involvement I have with it. You know, it's, you know, when you're performing there, you don't take that for granted, the fact that I get to do that. It's really, really cool. I love the fact that I get to say I work there sometimes, and then I get to come over to, you know, come to Nashville and hang out with you and other people. And you get, when you say that you do that, it's like an icebreaker. You know, people are like, oh my God, you've done stuff at the Cavern?
Yeah.
You're like, yeah. And the fact that I can fly 10 hours and have that conversation with people and have that common ground to speak to it's really lovely. You know, so it's a special thing.
Yeah. It's a pilgrimage for some people.
Of course it is. You know, that's what International Beatle Week, the thing Clark sort of runs. People will fly from all over the world to play at the Cavern Club. You know, and I don't think that's going to stop. You know, the young bands are still coming through. It's a huge pilgrimage. It's the Mecca. There isn't. I can't think of another Beatle place that is that. You know, I know they only did it for that period of time, you know, in the early 60s-ish, and then they stopped playing at the Cavern. But there isn't another place like where you can have that pilgrimage too, is there? You know what?
No,
it's the only place that exists.
And how long was their residency there? Like, that was a big yawn. I'll edit that shit out. We switched to beer.
Yeah.
No, I'm not even that interested in that. It's like a year or something. No, here's what I want to actually ask you. Mm-hmm. So you were talking about how everybody has their own relationship to the Beatles and how it's sort of transcendent. You know, when we just saw Paul McCartney, it was obviously like the feeling I felt with the Cavern Club Beatles, you know, times 10, times 100, whatever.
I bawled my eyes out watching Paul.
Me too.
You're in the room, albeit with 20,000 people, but you're in a room with a Beatle, a Beatle. That guy was in the Beatles, and he's there, like 400 feet from me.
I'm like, how does he exist?
It's mad. He's a mythical being, and he's there.
I kept saying, I'm like, I can't believe he's real. Like I knew he was, seen interviews, all the things, but I'm like, I can't believe that he's a real person and he's right there. Mm-hmm. This is, I have like a decision tree of the second time I've said that of like places I could go with that, but I don't know if I want to go there or not. Because I do want to know how you see it. So you're sitting there and you're going, that's the real Paul McCartney, and it's mind blowing. And Let It Be for me was the one where like I started realizing towards the end of the concert, I'm like, Let It Be is going to happen. And I know I'm going to cry, you know, and it came and I did. And it was just, the whole concert is just the whole time. Now he's playing Blackbird. It's like, it's amazing. It was a relationship to music. And I just had last week, I had Dale, my Liverpool tour guide, and he went and saw Oasis recently, as did I. And I'm just like, Oasis was amazing. Like it was like the greatest concert experience I ever had, but Paul McCartney was better.
Of course.
And largely the biggest thing is just where those songs hit. It's like, it's deeper and more fundamentally like a piece of my makeup than Oasis is. Even though I listened to Oasis at a really young age, there's something about the Beatles songs. It's like, it's deep. I don't know. It's deeper. I'm curious, like how do you see it? Like why are the Beatles so preeminently important and something that people would want, like go put on a fake nose so that you look a little more like the guy who played with them because that's going to change people's lives tonight. Like, why?
The Beatles changed. They changed music. They really did. They changed the trajectory of where music was going. And if they didn't exist, music wouldn't be anywhere near as rich as it currently is. It would still exist. Like obviously the industry, I mean. It would still, we would still have stuff, but they are woven into the fabric of what the music industry is now. There is no, it was so profound what they did. And it's the fact that we're still talking about it now, kind of 60 years on, more than 60 years on, is testament to that. You know, that no other band, they are the most important band that has ever existed and will be for a long time to come. And not just in one area either, in multiple areas. So in terms of fandom, in terms of breaking America and touring, you know, they're breaking records with the amount of people that were coming to their shows, how hard they worked, how often they released records, whether it was original music on the records or cover versions, how they approached recording in the studio. So if they'd have done any one of those things, they would still be a legendary band. You know, if they just held records for attendances at shows, that would still be like noteworthy. If they had just had one album of original stuff, and people knew them as the band that started to write original music. I mean, I know a lot of bands did, but they were the ones that broke through doing it. And if they were if they did it once, they would still be a kind of footnote in the industry of, well, the Beatles actually started writing their own music. That would still be noteworthy. If they had started experimenting in the studio, and that was the only thing that was noteworthy, that would still be a big thing. Yeah. But they did all of it, every single bit of it. And so they completely changed the way that everyone thinks about music. And it's such a serendipitous, perfect, so many coincidences happened within their existence. You know, that 8-year period that they existed for, you can quantify so much in it. You know, you can collect that history. That's what's so perfect about it too. I mean, the Stones are great, but the Stones are kind of still going. So you can't collect Stones stuff, you know, in a way that you could collect like trading cards. Whereas you can collect Beatle information across that period. You know, you can literally, because people have done it, we know that they've done it. You can track their existence day to day and find out what they were doing and probe deeper as to how that might have influenced what they were doing.
Yeah.
And it's so magical. And the fact that the four of them, there's no dead weight in that band. Every single one of those guys is a megastar. You know, they're all such talented, incredible musicians in their own right. You know, Ringo's still releasing albums. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
It's just gobsmacking. I almost don't have words for it. It's just how exciting it is that those four musicians. I mean, Ringo as a drummer is a legendary drummer. Who happened to also be in the most legendary band.
Right.
George Harrison's guitar style and songwriting and the way he approached guitar, everything about that, he would still be a legendary guitar player now if outside of the fact that he was in the most legendary band. You know, it's Paul McCartney, songwriter, his songwriting, his bass playing, you can't. There's no shortage of things that you could say. That all of it.
Even Paul's just bass playing is really cool and
it's
iconic.
Incredible. Yeah, it's iconic. Just his bass playing. If you were to ignore everything else, Paul's bass playing's legendary status. he also happens to be a legendary songwriter in the most legendary band that's ever existed.
Yeah.
And the same goes for the drummer that was in that band, Ringo. The same goes for, well, John Lennon's a different beast completely. But even the fact that he died almost transcends them into that calcifies,
you're right.
helps with that myth.
You're right, because I wonder how the mythology would be different if he hadn't passed away, because they say in the past it was like artists aren't famous until after they've passed away. Well, he did pass away and get that sort of legendary status. And then even though Paul's still alive today, but so the Beatles does get this, maybe in a way that's a period that there will be no reunion. It cannot happen.
Yeah.
And then I guess you get sort of a little reunion on Now and Then, the song, which is kind of cool, but still, there will be no Beatles reunion. It just can't happen.
No. I just think it's so special. The whole thing about it, every minuscule detail about everything about the Beatles will never be matched, ever. It's pretty perfect, as a story, as an entity, it's a behemoth. I can't even find the grandiose enough of terms for it. It's a giant ball of legendariness.
Yeah.
What a rubbish way of describing it, but yeah, it's that's why it's so important, and I don't think it will ever cease to be that. It's so huge, and it's just seeped into every part of culture all over the world, so all over the States, all over the UK, all over Europe, Australia, China, Russia, everywhere. Everyone knows the Beatles, and we're 60 odd years on, and still that's the case. And yeah, it's just so special, and it's so bonding. I found that through the thing I do online, my All You Need Is Drums. That's been the thing that's connected me with the most amount of people, and just common ground. Yeah, I can meet someone brand new, and we find out that we both like the Beatles, and suddenly there's a million things to talk about, and it's great. What an incredible thing to. They're bringing people together all over the world. It's lovely.
Yeah, and one thing I honed in on what you said it's worthy of thought is well, how come that will never happen again? And I believe you. Why can't that ever happen again? And part of it's maybe the historical context of what was before and then what they were able to change. But it's very hard for the mind to think of with just our exposure to everything now, because you and I are both exposed to everything. It's just really hard to conceive of anything coming around that could rapture everybody's attention and be like, whoa, wait, what is that?
Yeah, I don't. Interestingly, I don't think. So I speak to sort of my wife's grandma was obviously she was alive around when the Beatles were doing their thing, but she was actually a little bit too old for them, I think.
Right. Yeah.
And
yeah, my grandma too.
Yeah. So she kind of was. I've spoken to her about it. Were you around when do you remember it? And she was like, yeah, it was just kind of happening, and kind of like what we were saying at the beginning of this conversation about the way we define eras. We have this kind of a thing that it was engulfing the whole world, and it was this giant thing that was going on. And actually, people were just getting on with their normal lives.
Yeah.
And it didn't affect everybody. So I think that's an important thing to remember, is that it's a lot of what we're attributing, all of that kind of stuff I just said, it's being attributed in hindsight. I don't know if it will happen again, or if there is something that's already happened. The only thing that I can think of that's even vaguely close to it nowadays is the Arctic Monkeys, which is a bit of a random thing to have said. I'm certainly not putting those things together. But I remember when Arctic Monkeys' first record came out, that was pretty major. That was a really important record in the UK, but I don't think that they had the same effect across the States and the UK. But they've followed a similar trajectory in that they're 2 albums that sound quite similar, and then they've done 2 albums that are different. And in the same way, the Beatles have kind of their sound changed
a lot. Yeah.
The Arctic Monkeys have done a similar thing, and I wonder, it certainly won't be anywhere close, but I think that they will become one of the bands where, in hindsight, when we look back at their career, it will be not like majorly special in the way that I've just said, but we will appreciate it more when it's gone than we currently are doing now.
Yeah.
But I think that, I don't know why. Also, I mean, loads of stuff to do with the depression after the war and the Beatles offering some kind of light-hearted promise, when the first records that they were bringing out were kind of bubblegum sugary pop, wasn't it?
Right. Well, in some ways, it's dark to think, but in some ways, like why the whole world changed, like you and I are like the like downstream recipients of the boomers culture, right? But the boomers culture was created by the, I don't know if you call it this in England, we call it the greatest generation here, the like World War II era. Okay, so GI, they'll call it sometimes. But that era that went and fought in World War II, that's like my grandpa's age. They grew up very different than the boomers did, right? And then they created this like post-war security, and there was this like flourishing of money. Now, obviously, the U.S. had a different experience to this than in England. But in America, it's like all the busted up shit from bombs was thousands of miles away. It didn't happen here other than like Pearl Harbor. So then everybody came home like, we fucking won. And then they had built up so much industry during the war that all of a sudden we're like, well, what are we going to do now? And people are like, hang out, drink malts, listen to rock and roll. Hell yeah. And then the boomers were like, I guess we're going to go, try drugs in a field at Woodstock. You might as well.
Interesting.
And so you and I like grew up with like this all being sort of like canonized of like what our parents did as teenagers, what the teenage experience is. Before the 50s, the word teenager didn't exist. And so we grew up with like, here's what teenagers do. And then you live a little crazy, and then you do this, and then you go and get a job, and, you're going to go to school, you're going to get a college degree, and then you're going to go get a job, and blah, blah, blah. Now we've been at this weird time coming back to 2008 where like all of a sudden that financial security of institutions is much less secure than in our parents' age. But like, if you think of like the whole of history, probably the boomer experience is a complete oddity. Like a complete, like, it's like a wave crashed in the war. The wave crashed, and it's like for many people, the worst happened. If somebody died in war, the cities were bombed out, Liverpool's all bombed out. They are living in the aftermath of the worst happening, but now it's okay, and we're going to rebuild, right? And then we just had this like relatively chill time. Like everything was like kind of chill, and you got this idea that like what life is I like create a stable living for my family, and we like go on vacation a few times a year. And you and I grew up in this like we watch TV shows telling you that's what the world is. And now we've been entering a time that's a little more uncertain and a little like, is the worst going to happen with AI and everything else? I hope the worst doesn't happen. I don't want us to go to war. In some ways, it almost feels like, that when you feel like you have to throw up, like, and you're like, no, fucking, I really don't want to throw up. Please don't let me throw up. Yeah. In some ways, it's almost like, if you look at, I'm speaking way out of my depth again, but like, if you look at the whole of world history, like, I hope that we're post-war and post all those things, but also like the whole of human history is people go to war, empires rise and fall. For us in the U.S., it feels very much like this has always been going, and it's always going to go good, and it's free, and we're like number one, and we have like riches, and it's great. But it's like in the whole of human history, empires rose and fell, and bad things happen, and wars and things you never expected, and COVIDs and shit. Like I don't want this, what I'm going to say, but like maybe there has to, before another Beatles type cultural moment, maybe there has to be some sort of terrible thing that none of us want. And you all wake up one day and it's over and the city's bombed out and 4 teenagers pick up synthesizers or guitars or whatever. Well, 4 robot AIs pick up their guitars and go,
I think you're probably right. I think that's it. That's exactly, creativity is born out of
adversity.
Yeah. I mean, that's been known for a long time, and I think you're probably right that unfortunately, that's just what has to happen. Not has to, but that is. I mean, it probably will happen. Something like that. Hopefully nothing as catastrophic as the world wars, but
I hope not. Yeah, we've been like riding the coattails of a time of security that came after all of that, and just like, and also we're Westerners. Like we're not, I don't know enough to be like whichever part of Germany. I guess all of Germany, but like Germany's super lost. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't great for them for a really long time, but we were like on the winning side, and then obviously in the U.S., like I said, like we also didn't sustain like losing tons of our buildings.
Yes.
So we didn't have to come back and rebuild and be depressed for a long time. We kind of got to be like, okay, cool, it's over.
Like, I've never thought about that, but yeah, that's not the English experience or the British experience of it. I mean, obviously I didn't experience it, but I think it was very much like loads of buildings have gone, and it's sad. Like obviously tons and tons and tons of people died, and there's memorials. Every village has a war memorial of the people that died from that village. We've got a giant one in Kippax. Kippax isn't even big, and we've got a giant memorial with lists of people who guys who were 17, 18 who went off and died, and yeah, it's pretty major.
Yeah, well, and obviously there was a lot of U.S. soldiers' lives lost and all those things, but it was a different cultural experience because it happened far away.
Yes, yeah. Whereas we were like, Germany's not far away.
No, and the bomb is falling like in your literal town.
Yes, yeah.
What I mean, and so one of the things of the Beatles is that they are growing up in a town that was bombed out, like one of the heaviest hit towns because of the port.
Yeah.
I'm speaking like a historian. This is because I just did the interview with the Beatles Liverpool tour guide.
Yeah.
But like they're growing up in that with like bombed out. They're growing up in a bleak situation. And then what's funny is we look back and we're like, their time was fun and nostalgic. It was, oh, just love me do. How simple. You know what I mean? But it's like, but the person who's writing that song is writing that in, if you've seen Paul's house, is like this small little tiny home and with burned out buildings around them. Like they're writing these hopeful anthems in the midst of darkness.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? In the recovery. And then they import it to the United States and we're all like, hell yeah. Like, let's twist.
Man, I've never really thought about it that way. It's really interesting because I hadn't appreciated the far awayness, as you describe it, of the US to it. And yeah, that's fascinating. It kind of fits perfectly, doesn't it? It fits in. It's another one of those serendipitous moments of the US was in just the right situation to accept this hopeful sugar that these four lads had started writing.
And didn't you go to the 1964 film premiere?
I did.
So I remember seeing that on your social media.
Yeah.
So I recently watched that film, and they talk all about the JFK association that, he had just died here and that our nation was in mourning over that.
Yeah.
Way before my time. So I believe it, but wasn't there for that. And that's another part of the Beatles kind of serendipity is like, apparently our country was very sad.
But that's it. That's why it's so difficult to even wonder whether it will be replicated, and also to understate how important a lot of the stuff is. When I talk about collecting Beatles things, it's all of those things, and there are countless numbers of coincidences and things that happened just at the right moment that meant that they had the career that they had. And that's why it's so, to go back all the way to the beginning of this sort of line of conversation, that's why it's so important that why it means so much to all of these people, because their influence is just it's so special. You can't, when it really, really gripes me when people say like, oh, I don't really like the Beatles, or I don't get why they're so important. Yeah. And you're like, well, let's go through all of those things, everything we're talking about, all of these situations that all just fell into place exactly in the right way to create this giant of a band. And and it's every, from the music to the culture around it. Like you say, the culture in the UK happened to be right. The culture in the US happened to be right and primed for all of these moments. It was perfect. It was a perfect story. You couldn't make it up, and that's why it's so important.
Well, and in another way, and I thought about this during, I don't know if it's something Paul said at the concert or if it was something I saw in the documentary, but like in some ways, I wonder if, like, I think of it like the Beatles were the ones creating the culture that did this. And I think that is at least partially true.
Yeah.
But in another way, they were sort of riding a cultural wave that was going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
So like I don't know that there would have been another Beatles if it hadn't been them, but if you think about it, like think about this like bombed out post-war England, and then think about this U.S., morning after John F. Kennedy and all these things, but also all this disposable incomes and just sort of like culturally what was going to happen with the boomers. To some degree, it's a culture made up of its artistic, the artistic ideas that were being shared through musicians and everything like that. But at the same time, some of those things are probably just the byproduct of like, for the first time in human history, there's young people that have disposable income and that aren't being called off to war and that don't have to work in a factory for the family to survive. And there's like enough money for them to have leisure time to go like chill and explore new ideas.
Yeah.
And so in some ways, like the Beatles became everybody's like leaders in that culture. But in some ways, the things that the Beatles were, it's like that culture was probably going to happen in some way or another.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's not, don't get me wrong, like it's not all just a matter of coincidence and serendipity in terms of the business of the Beatles. Brian Epstein had a lot to do with them being as brilliant as, the thought of as brilliant as they are. It's he made that happen. He was a clever businessman. And that's what to your point about them creating the culture, when you've got all of those teenagers with that specific set of circumstances of having a bit of disposable income and the freedom, of course he knew that because his family owned a load of record shops, he was wise to that. It wasn't just an accident that they started releasing the sorts of things that they did, but the serendipity happens in that it was not really an accident, but it just so happens that they had a song like Love Me Do and were able to go down and record it, and it happened to be the right kind of thing that could be released. But,
well, and we probably don't have time for this, but like, and George Martin.
Oh, of course, yeah. You can't. As soon as I said Brian Epstein, I immediately kind of felt bad that I hadn't included George Martin in that. But I'm thinking of it in this moment from the business perspective.
Of course,
of it.
yeah.
But he's very much part of the musical. This is what I mean. Like, you can't understate every aspect of their whole career is brilliant, like beautifully brilliant. So the music stuff is, in its own right, is full of the fact that George Martin exists and the fact that he was running the comedy label,
right?
He was some of the noises that the Beatles have on their records and the sort of attitude of their albums, or of the recordings, owes itself to the fact that George Martin had the experiences that he did doing the things that he did. The fact that Brian Epstein's parents own the record shop, family owned the record shop.
Yeah.
And
the fact that Jeff Emmerich was, did you interview him at one point?
Not Jeff Emmerich, no.
But the fact that he was a green engineer willing to try really radical things. Mm-hmm. And he, like in his book, have you read his book?
Of course I have.
Yeah. The fact that he talks about like, they asked him to put the mics close to the drums, mm-hmm. and that was against Abbey Road policy. But he's like, it's the Beatles, I'm not going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
And they had enough clout at that time that he could like do something that you weren't supposed to do.
Yeah.
And then they continued to embrace that and do weird shit like putting microphones in bags underwater and all those different things that they did.
It's madness. And then you got Glyn Johns, who has a technique named after him. The Glyn Johns technique.
Right.
He was one of the engineers. And I mean, Norman Smith's, it's not quite as groundbreaking, but it's still a sound. You know, the mono, Coles overhead and a D20 or D12 or whatever.
Was he the one before Jeff Emmerich?
Yeah, so Norman Smith was the OG. And every one of those engineers that was involved in that recording, it's all perfect. You know, it was this perfect confluence of all of these amazing people coming into contact with each other at just the right time. Right from the members of the band, to the manager of the band, to the producer of the music, to the engineers who were willing to push the boundaries of what the White Coats would allow them to at Abbey Road, to the fact that they started to push the boundaries of the 3-hour recording session, which paved the way for what music was then to become. You know, I know that the 3-hour recording session still exists in Nashville, and for good reason, but
not for me, but I know it does.
Yeah, I know.
I was just like, before this, I was telling you, I was listening to your episode with Chris Wilkinson, who we both know, and he was talking about that. Then the 3-hour, the 2.
That's because I was obsessed with it. Yeah.
I came up starting at the same studio where Chris worked at, which is why I met him, and I started down that trajectory of doing it the Nashville way, and then I went my own path because just a confluence of events. And then now I've just been in this basement for 8 years and I just do it however I'm going to do it.
Yeah,
But I regularly have to remember when I hire musicians, like I was thinking about when I was listening to your podcast, I'm like, oh yeah, they think it's going to be, this is their framework for what it is. And they are very dialed into this is their thing they do. And I have to try to remember that when I ask them for things. And I'm regularly thinking about like, okay, what am I going to pay them? What am I going to budget for them? Because they're used to this other thing. And I'm not usually wanting to do 3 hours. I usually want to do some other random thing. And so you got to figure out how to like compensate them so that they don't at 3 hours check out and be like, why have we only done one song in these 4 hours? We should have done our 6 songs. And,
I think, I'm obsessed with, before I came here and Nashville was just like an idea for me.
Yeah.
That's why I was so interested to talk to Chris and like Fred Eltringham, the drummer we were talking about earlier, is just really, really, really busy Nashville drummer. He's incredible. And I'm obsessed with this idea of, it's all down to the Beatles in the 60s again, the fact that these 3-hour sessions existed and that's how music was made in these kind of bite-sized little chunks.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me because that's not what I grew up with. You know, I didn't come up through a studio system, you know, like you did. I didn't have an internship or assistant engineer or anything. My experience is being a musician in the studio and, you know, like residential studios. I did a lot of residential recordings and you basically just book it and you rock up at 9 and you go until whatever you were going to do that day is done. Yeah. And sometimes that's 10 at night and then you go home and that's your recording.
Right.
So that's kind of what I knew of making music. And to me, truthfully, there's a lot of dead time that I felt a lot of time was wasted at the, you know, especially residential recording sessions that I've been involved with. Huge amount of second guessing, overthinking, and wasted time. And I used to think, I mean, I've gone on a completely different path of conversation now, just talking about,
that's fine,
about Chris and stuff. But I used to feel as though I was almost like the bad guy in a situation because like I didn't care enough because I felt that we should be working faster and that actually what we've just done is fine. So why can't we just keep that? That sounds great. And because I wasn't overthinking and my gut instinct was like, this is working. Why are we not moving on? Why are we doing another take? The last one was fine. And because I didn't have the maturity and the experience at that time to recognize that's fine. I was right in those moments. I just felt like I didn't care enough. And I felt like I was being, not outwardly, you know, not obviously, but almost felt a little vilified because it was a competition between us early 20-somethings about who cared enough to pinpoint every minuscule detail that needs fixing.
Right.
And, you know, we all recognize that as typical band thing, isn't it? Weirdly, me and Chris were at college together, but we didn't really know each other. I didn't know I didn't know Chris at all. I think I think we might be the same age, but I took a year out, so I ended up being a year below him. But he did production and I was on a jazz performance course. And he came straight to Nashville. So as soon as we met on a session in the UK, I was obsessed with like, I want to know everything about how it works here.
Yeah.
Because I really admire there is a place for long, drawn out kind of residential style things where it's slow and it's a lot about like almost about the hang as well.
Yeah.
Because that's important to what's going on. But I do quite like the idea of the 3-hour block and the limitation of what that produces, because you can't overthink in that time, especially if you're going to try and get 3 or 4 songs done. You have to just be fast, and that produces some really interesting stuff. You know, a lot of Motown and things were produced in. When I say produced, I mean musically produced. Like the outcome of those sessions was really quite special because it was just like another day at the office for a lot of those musicians. And I think that especially coming here and meeting a lot of the people that work here, that fastness and the decision making that happens here specifically is really special. I like that. I like the confidence in decision making, and a lot of experienced engineers and studio musicians are able to do that. And I don't find that it's not as common with the people that I know in the UK. But I really like that in especially here, that people seem to have that attitude of like quick stuff. So yeah, going back to Chris, I wanted to know everything about how those sessions worked and why. It just fascinates me that this kind of culture that began when recording studios were hella expensive, and the reason those 3-hour sessions exist is because of how expensive it was, and they could get 3 sessions in a day, and that that's going on in the 60s and still happening here now, and it fascinates me.
Yeah, Nashville is kind of a special place. In some ways it does, like Nashville's been able to maintain and like keep up some of the recording culture of the past.
Yeah, and I understand it's not across the board, you know. It's not every studio, but it's a lot of them. Well, like a choice few of them do it that way, don't they?
Yeah, and but just even like I do a lot of different things. It depends on the person and their budget and their level and all these different things. But if we call in session players, you know, people have to get paid, and so you have a time limit, and there's like cultural expectations of how long something takes, and so. You are when you do like a session where you do like 4 different people, like we don't have time to like, the bass player doesn't have the opportunity to suck and we're just like, don't worry about it. Like you'll get it later. It's like everybody has to be on point. Mm-hmm. And one of my challenges as a producer is if I want to go deeper with something once the band has picked a direct, because kind of the way it'll work for me is we'll pull in these people, we'll kind of show them a little bit what we have in mind, and then for some songs it's more, for some songs it's less, but then they go in and then they just start like playing it in the way that they interpret your instruction. Mm-hmm. But if you say Motown to a drummer, they might go to pop, 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 tap, pop, right? But they might, you know, there's lots of Motown songs. There's not just that one beat. Yeah, and maybe they go to that. I meant something different. Now, one thing I try to personally embrace is the fact that all these people around me are geniuses, and they're going to do something cool that maybe I never expected. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, well, let me not overly direct them to the exact way I heard it, because they may discover magic or bring something to the table I would have never thought of. Yeah. Sometimes they go down a path you totally don't want them to go down. Yeah. In the band, it's the first time they play a thing, and I'll let them play it a few times. But like after 2 times of them playing it, maybe 3 at the most, they're like already honing into what it is that their thing is, and now they're trying to like perfect it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes what they started doing in the beginning isn't where I want it to go. And I'm like, I want to hear it a time or two before especially, I don't want to shoot down anybody's idea when it's new, because I think there's no like bad ideas. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm like, maybe I just don't like it because I heard it another way. So let me give it a chance. But I come to a place around the 3rd time through where I'm like, okay, so now let's sort of direct this thing a little bit. Different people's instincts and whatever. And but yeah, it's kind of I feel like for me, working around the level of musicians here has always really challenged me to have to step up my decision-making abilities, my abilities to communicate to them in the way that they're going to understand, whether it's knowing the Nashville numbers or if it's knowing how to speak, because even just if you have a cellist on a session, learning how to speak their language.
Yeah, it's a different language to a band musician, isn't it?
They'll understand differently than a guitar. There's things you can say to a guitar player, and a cellist does not speak that language. You have to say it different. And so, I mean, part of the whole art and what makes this like endlessly fascinating is like it's taken me. I still have much like way further to go, but it's taken me 13 years of being here, of being like having a session with a cellist and having enough time on that session to be like, okay, I want you to do that thing that's like, and they're like, this, and they go, and you're like, no. And when they finally get it, and I'm like, let me show you a song reference. And then they get it. They're like, I'm like, okay, what is that called? And they're like, oh, it's called a glissando. And I'm like, okay, in the future, I will just say, do a glissando. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, a decade of picking up those terms so that the next time I work with a saxophonist, I can, use whatever term it is or call it stabs versus, the weirdest one is guitar players. Like, Sonnets in every 50s song where they do like a little chink on the 2 and the 4 with the snare and some big spring reverb on it.
Yeah.
Every guitar player calls that something else. Every guitar player. I've heard like, I had one guy, I'm like, do that thing that's like dink. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And we finally came up with little tasties. He's like, oh, just some little tasties?
I like that.
And I'm like, okay, do a little tasty. And then now I'm speaking their language, whatever it is that will get them to do the thing that I'm, hearing or feeling the song needs. I don't know. I know where I'm going with that.
Well, you've got a good set of, because I think that's kind of, from what I understand, especially on this trip that I'm here for, that it's changing. There's from what I understand, like a lot of LA musicians are coming and moving here, and I was chatting with the guys at East Iris last night, and they was talking about how the dynamic of the sessions, like you're describing, so that Nashville musician experience thing is, I think LA works a bit more like the UK works, as I've described it in this conversation. It's a bit more relaxed, not quite as on point.
Yeah.
And that achieves a different thing.
Right.
Whereas here it is more on the nose. So they're talking about how the sessions are changing, and you've got that especially because you're an artist yourself, you have that experience of having worked in a fairly straight ahead studio that achieves like it has an output that has to, it's a business essentially, and it has to, the musicians want to go home after the session and know when it's wrapped up. But that doesn't fit all the time, especially if you're working with a band and there is no session players, it's just a band.
Well, it's just like what we were talking about with the buildings earlier, or what I was saying about the buildings. I don't know if you agree with me or not. But it's a contrast between, what do you want? Do you want elevators or do you want historic buildings? And the answer is, I want both of those things.
I do, yeah.
Both of those things have value, but sometimes you can't have both. And I think this is similar, where the efficiency in the studio of everybody comes in and they're able to do a whole song in an hour, that is valuable. And like not wasting any time. It's this guy, I don't know if you ever heard this book, Thinking Fast and Slow.
Yeah, I haven't read it, but I know it.
Yeah, I like started the audiobook and I only got so far. It's very long. But there are other people like Malcolm Gladwell have like distilled his bigger research ideas into like easier bite-sized chunks for the masses.
Yeah.
And so, but there's value in your instant reaction.
Yes.
And when everybody just has a gut like, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I have absolutely experienced where like we went against our gut of knowing and we wasted time.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a value in thinking slow and rethinking things. And I've experienced other times where somebody's gut needed to be challenged, because sometimes what your gut is your preconceived notions.
Absolutely.
And sometimes pushing past that and being like, no, I want you to do it again, but opposite. And they're like, it hurts me to do that. Sometimes you get to something great on the other end. And it is, you said this in the very beginning, you said there is no right. And it's nowhere more true than art, that it's like efficiency creates something beautiful. Just chilling, hanging out. Sometimes the coolest ideas happen because 3 hours in, when so-and-so goes to get a beer, all of a sudden they have this bizarre new idea, and that changes the world. And it's like all of it's right and all of it's wrong. But I'm a fan of, like I said, when I get around those musicians, having to rise to the challenge, because I know I come from California. So I grew up with, we go into the studio for all day and we do one song a day.
Yeah.
And then I came here and it's a very different expectation. So to me, I feel like it is this call to rise to the challenge where I'm like, especially in the beginning, I'm like, I'm 20 years old and I'm working with these session musicians who have played on big records. And they all are better than me. They're all better at their instrument than I am at any one thing I do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you're like, but I'm the guy today, so I better step into this role. And, I've had a mutiny. I've had a few mutinies. Not many, but I've had at least twice where a band kind of turned on me, or an engineer I hired sort of turned on me and wasn't agreeing with my direction anymore. And I had to go regroup and figure out how to get back into their good graces, because if you're leading something, people have to respect you and follow you. You know?
But conflict is a good thing at times.
Yeah.
And that's what you were just talking about. It hurts me to do this idea because it goes against what I don't know. Actually, I think this is a really interesting point, because I don't think you talk about, so your past experiences will influence your future decisions often, and having what a lot of people don't have is the self-awareness of their experiences. They haven't done enough reflection. That's what, when we talked about being the changing of the guard, I think something changes when you're in your mid-30s. It starts to change in your early 30s, but in your mid-30s, you're really starting to hone in on, you've done the reflection. You're starting to understand that there's a lot more going on than, you're...
In marriage, right?
I think they're just being a grown-up, like doing grown-up
I'm sure
things.
Kids, which I haven't done yet.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, no, I thought I was fine the way I was, and now you're with this whole other human who's challenges that a lot.
Absolutely. So what I hesitated on is the idea that sometimes your gut says one thing and that's not the right thing. I'm not sure that that's quite the case, because I think in reality, we all know what our gut speaks. I mean, quite literally, actually, the word gut,
right.
I think it really is we call it a gut reaction for a reason. And I think that we all really know what it is that we want. Whereas when we're less experienced, we have a tendency to not have the self-awareness to listen to our gut, and we go against our gut instincts. So I'm not sure that, I think it's just that it's whether you're working on experience and your past. So going with things, this happened to me before, so I'm going to do that, and the outcome was good, so I'm going to do the same thing again. But that might not work in terms of your kind of gut reaction. That might not be what your gut's telling you to do, which is why people have situations that they consistently find themselves in. That can be in the studio, where things are happening the same way every single time, because they're continually ignoring what their gut is wanting them to do.
Right. But I'll give you a few for instances here. The main one I think of when I think gut is, I had this artist I will not name, and it was very hard working with them. And the turning point moment for me where I realized, okay, I have to just adjust my expectations for what this is, was they had written a song and they were doing driving eighth note piano, dun 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 dun, the whole song through with no variation. I didn't think one thing about that. That's a normal way to write a song. But now that we're going to go and make it a full band production, okay, it should probably shift a little bit somewhere in there. So we get to verse 2, and I'm like, okay, what if for verse 2 you drop out for the first 4 bars and then come back in? This is my, that is not a revolutionary production idea. That's paint by numbers. Yeah. But just trying to start honing this idea. And it became an argument, a dispute. I mean, I didn't get heated or anything, but it became a dispute where they're like, I really think I need that just the whole time. It needs to be there the whole song. And I'm like, could we just try one where you just give it 4 bars break, give our ear a break from it because it'll be more powerful when you come back in, right? Very basic arrangement idea.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't even try it because they were like, just I got to go with my gut. And my gut here says that that's what it needs to be. This person was they were young. They were green. I've made a lot more productions than they had, right? So to me, in that experience, this may just be some of the limitations of language that we say certain words to mean lots and lots of things.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, if I had more like relational capital with that person to like, if they were like a best friend, I feel like I would want to be like, I don't think that's like what you're saying for gut. What you mean is your preconceived idea about what the song must be because that's how you wrote it. And I understand that you have an attachment to how you wrote it. But this is like a pretty easy arrangement shift that I feel we should make. It's at least worth you trying one time to listen to and reconsider your original idea.
Mm-hmm.
But I think more what you're talking about with gut is more like an inner knowing that you have, like, I don't know. It's like both are true.
Yeah, I think in that situation, that I don't know that, obviously I wasn't in that particular situation. My kind of, based on the very primitive facts that we have of that situation,
yeah.
My guess would be that artist is scared in that moment to divert away from what they know is going to get them a result that they're happy with.
Right.
So they're being green, they don't have the experience. So they're using the word gut in that moment, not in the way that we're talking about it. They're just using it as an excuse. Like they're not, that's right. It's just words. And I think what's interesting, so I'm thinking two things.
Yeah.
And the first of all is, I think as we get older, we get better at listening to ourselves, really being confident to say in that moment, whatever it is, I'm gonna go home now from my night out because I don't want to be here anymore. Not I feel like I should stay out because I don't want to be that loser that goes home.
Right.
Or I'm confident to try this arrangement thing because let's see what happens. And then you can listen to your visceral reaction to it in your body. That's what makes us good producers of music, is because we can listen, feel the music running through us and go, my reaction to that wants it to go in this direction. And we're better at listening to that reaction as we get older.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I thought was interesting about what you're saying is in that moment, as a producer and working with an artist like that and going back to like conflict, you have a choice to make. So you can either choose to let that artist learn for themselves and just be like, look, so not explicitly say it, but essentially what you're saying is you let them do it. Release the song. It won't be, it won't be as good, but it's not worth the argument in that moment to get it done. And this is where producers often do it this way, which is why producers have sometimes they have a reputation for being a bit argumentative. Is the conflict in that moment a good thing? Because that artist pulling back on what you're saying will not be about that song. It's not about that song. It's about something bigger that's going on with them. It's about some kind of fear that they've got of trying your idea or not being right, or maybe it's about it being your suggestion and not coming from them. They don't want your input on it. They want it to all come from them.
Right.
So it's not about that song and that moment. It's about something much bigger than that. So if you were to push back and create some conflict in that, in the moment, they might bite you like an animal would react and bite. But actually, if they might learn from that on reflection. So they might storm out and go, well, fuck it, I'm not working with you anymore.
Right.
And then you call them up later or the next day and they go, I was really hasty then and I was a bit rude to you. I'm really sorry. I've thought about it and maybe we should try your idea. And they've learned a bit about themselves. Your relationship's deepened between each other and they get potentially a better song out of it because they've then utilized your experience. And I'm not saying that either one of those outcomes is right or that there's not a better one than another. And I don't know if I would have the confidence in that moment, depending on the situation, to call them out on it and force the...
That's great. Somebody's being killed above our heads. I don't know what's happening up there.
There's some conflicts going on up there.
Yeah.
But, you know, like, it's all about having that enough, just knowing it in that situation whether or not to push it. And there's been times where I've done sessions, especially with younger artists, because I think it tends to be less experienced people, where I have gently, very politely pushed back about something or raised my query. And either the song's then been released and in the moment it didn't go the way I wanted it to, but next time they work with me, we have a chat about whatever the new track was, and it transpires that the thing I did bring up and flag, they actually did quite like that kind of attitude. Right. And one of the reasons they've come back to me is because having reflected on that exchange, they valued the fact that I was able to bring that up, even though they didn't listen to it. And, you know, it's like, is that the hill that you want to die on? Probably not. So, you know, you can raise these things and then at some stage you just got to kind of leave it. And there's been occasions where I've had revisions on a track I've done, and it, you know, particularly with younger artists, and I've not agreed with the revision, and I've really, really quite fervently pushed back, and I've gone, so the fill that you're asking me to play cuts right across the vocal, and it's completely up to you. You know, I'm not producing this song, but I feel so strongly about this that I'm just going to check with you one more time. Please go back and listen to what I've done, because the one that I've done sits with the vocal beautifully. So, I'm completely at your mercy. You do whatever you will, but on this occasion, I do feel quite strongly about it. So I'm just asking you to go back and have one more listen. Quite often they'll come back. This situation doesn't happen all the time, but you know, they'll come back the next day and they'll be like, actually, yeah, you're right. Or I get the worst one. You probably have this. Every producer probably has this. You send a mix. I send a track off at 4:00 and I get an email back at 4:10. Like, that fill in there. And you're like, you've listened to it once.
Right.
Give it a minute, man. Like, you've lived with this demo for 2 months and you've made an impulse email back to me.
But if I'm gonna be like somewhat conflicting and pull it back to guts, like what if their gut said it was wrong and your gut said it was right?
But it's not that quick email back is not, that one's based on demoitis. So that's based on what their expectations were. That's not gut. That's listening to their preconception of what it needs to be, rather than like allowing the possibility that the new sounds that I've done could be better than what they had before. They could not be, and that's perfectly fine too. So part of my job as a especially remote session player is almost...
I love we're like two hours in and we're like, oh yeah, you're a remote session player. That's come up now.
But it's part of that. My job, as I see it, is to coach the situation. I'm not coaching the artist, but to make sure that I've set the tone of our relationship, that I'm allowed to experiment in a way that can't cause conflict. Because I'd say to them, you know, look, I'm going to do what, if I'm ever in doubt, I'll do a version that's like the demo or like whatever they've sent me, and then I'll do my version. And I'll say to them, and I say this on every call, if I have an idea that I think is going to work, I am going to run with it. And I'm going to send it to you, because to me, that's worth the risk.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to listen to it, and we can always go back. I'll always do what you want. You're paying me. I will always do what it is that you want me to do. But if I've got something that I think is going to be good, I'm going to send it to you, and I'm going to take that risk. And what I don't want them to do is get that email and be like, oh shit, he's not listened to me at all. He's not done.
Right.
You're welcome to email me back. But what I want people to do is I want them to live with it for 24 hours.
Right.
Give
it a chance.
Yeah. I don't want the 5 minutes later they've listened to it once and come back with some, it's not like the demo. Like, I know it's not like the demo. I've pored over this. I've done loads of takes. I've listened to the song a lot. Everything I've done I've done for a reason.
Right.
So just give me a minute and sit with it. And if by tomorrow morning you still don't like it, that's cool.
And maybe it's like one of those like game recognizes game things where like if you're having that interaction with a person who you can feel, you can tell is on the artistic level where they're having pushback for like in a valid way that you're like you can respect where they're coming from. Yeah. It's a lot different than when you encounter somebody who's like really green or like doesn't know what they're about yet, and then they have pushback. It feels very different.
Yeah.
And I've been humbled. I've been humbled by somebody who was younger, less knowledgeable, less experienced, and I pushed back hard and they came back another way. And in the end I was like, God damn it, they were right. You know? That's happened.
And that's beautiful when that happens. And that's what's lovely about experience, because you can This listening to, being able to listen to what's inside of us doesn't happen all the time. You know, we've all got other things going on in our lives. If for whatever reason that day our minds are elsewhere and we're not listening to ourselves properly. I know it. I know when I've worked on sessions where I've told people I'll deliver this. I'm working on this for you on Wednesday, and I'll have it to you by Wednesday, like end of play Wednesday, and then comes to end of play, comes to Wednesday, it's not happening. You know, maybe I've got some issue with my kids that day, or, you know, I can churn something out that sounds acceptable, but that's not what I'm about. So I'll just be like, right, I'm not doing this. I'm going to send them an email and I'm going to say, I'm really sorry. I know I said I was going to do it today. It's not happening today. I'm going to do it tomorrow instead. And I'll go in the morning and it will get done just like that, because I've slept, I've dealt with whatever was moving my mind. And what's lovely about, you know, maybe your example where you call it like being humbled, maybe that day you weren't able to listen to yourself in the way that you are a lot of the time. But you have the humility and lack of ego enough that you were able to step away and go, God damn it, they were right. And that's cool, because we still got the result that we wanted, which is an awesome track. And it doesn't matter. And, you know, no one's saying you're any less of a musician because your idea didn't work.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's really interesting. And that's a really, really mature outlook, like way of being able to deal with things. And that's what being a producer, a lot of what being a producer is having that egolessness to be able to listen to yourself and understand when someone's emotional like gut reaction to the music is kind of, maybe it's more it's resonating deeper with them in that moment than it is with you, because you're not able to connect in that moment because of maybe some other stuff that's going on or whatever.
Yeah. And it's just also knowing that like you're just not everything. I'm not everything. You know, and so like I've had conversations with people in this very room about Taylor Swift numerous times. When people try to say that Taylor Swift's like one of the best songwriters of all time and she's, you know, equal to or surpassing the Beatles or whatever, like it really bothers me.
Yes.
But I will say I'm not the person her lyrics were made for.
No.
And so to some degree, you know, the Beatles comparison is real controversial. But I'll just say like to some degree, when I objectively, quote unquote, from my vantage point, what I believe is an objective analysis of Taylor Swift, we have to remember that I'm one person and my best idea or attempt to be as objective as I could possibly be is completely colored by all of my experiences and who I am. And somebody else could have a completely different, quote unquote, objective analysis of her. And we have to take into account, I'm just not the person she wrote the damn words for.
Yeah.
There's much about not only is there a lot about the female experience I don't understand because it wasn't me, but also there's parts of it that just don't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And, you know, and you find that like being married, you're just like regularly, like you can have a conversation, you're saying two different things to each other and using the same words. And so how am I I'm not going to understand her songs in the way that somebody that has her perspective will understand them. So I don't know.
But in a marriage, successful marriage,
We're only a year and a half in. We don't even know if it's successful yet.
Well, you basically have to understand. Marriage is a really good example of all of this. You have to there has to be an acceptance on both sides that you're both trying to figure it out. And in the moment, it might be that there is someone's biting, like has a biting reaction, and has said something scathing or whatever. But you have to accept that the way that you communicate, like you say, we're both saying the same words, but we're both meaning different things. Mm-hmm. And rather than butting heads and getting into point scoring and trying to be like, no, what I'm saying is right. You have to accept that there is another viewpoint, and you have to back down and be like, okay. But that happens on both sides. So, each side has got to be understanding that there is a different viewpoint, and then both of those viewpoints are validated and you both feel listened to and the conflict is resolved. So to extend that metaphor to music, it's the same, that if something is successful, i.e. it's popular among a lot of people, who's to argue with that? Yes, we don't have to listen to whatever it is that is popular, but there has to be some acceptance that there is another viewpoint, and from both sides, so that one side is not going, this is the best thing ever and everyone needs to recognize that. They're going, to me, this is brilliant and I really like it. And the other person needs to go, I don't like that, but I have to accept that there's something about it that I don't understand and that those people like it. And then both sides feel validated, and you can accept that that's what it is. But the fact is, if tons of people like something, like Taylor Swift or whatever example of it is, K-pop or whatever, we have to accept that there must be something about it that we like, that people like.
Right.
And, that might not make it technically like artistic. If it's kind of sugary pop, it might not be, a sort of a really artistic painting kind of equivalent of music, but there must be something good about it. There must be some substance, enough substance there that it's speaking to those people. And in that respect, nothing is kind of quantifiably sort of good or bad in a way. I suppose you can. It doesn't make it artistic in the sense that it's art is defining what art is an interesting thing, but it's I think that's there's that podcast I referenced at the very beginning called The Rest is Entertainment.
Yeah.
I was talking about Strictly Come Dancing and Dancing with the Stars. That's one of the things I really like about that podcast, is that there is zero judgment there about whether or not something is sort of academically good or not good. This is popular, so we are going to talk about it because it's popular, and we have to analyze it in a way. We can analyze it in a cultural phenomenon way. So this is it might not be technically, it's not a piece of art that's going, it's not a Broadway sort of a like acted like emotional show. It's a piece of sugary television. We are going to talk about it because it's resonating with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Let's analyze why that's happening. And I love that. I really enjoy that. And it doesn't make me want to watch any of the things that they're talking about.
But you love hearing about them.
I love the acceptance of it. I can't deal with, and I've been guilty of this myself, don't get me wrong, but I can't deal with the kind of like, that's crap mentality, because it's just, define that then.
Right. They said it about the Beatles too.
Of course, exactly. And look at how they're perceived now. So why don't we just reserve judgment on anything and on everything, and just sort of, let's analyze critically about why it's resonating with people, and then we can use our own taste in our own music and just do what we want to do. And certain things will be more highbrow than others, but I don't know. I just think I like the idea of it all being a melting pot of kind of interesting stuff, and not having labels like good or bad or whatever, and I think that comes with having young kids too, because they listen to a lot of interesting stuff that, the K-pop Demon Hunters soundtrack is big in our house. I can't
it's everybody's house.
Yeah. Like I can't get on board with that, but my kids love it. So who am I to say whether that is objectively good or bad? It's resonating with a heck of a lot of people in the world right now, so there must be something about it,
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great place to end this. I have a plan.
Oh, yeah.
I have a plan to land the plane, but it's risky. And so if it's a crash landing, this part will be edited out, and we're going to end on that beautiful note.
Okay.
So here's how I'm going to land the plane. So I told you before we even started the episode that I was going to tell you who was sat in the chair that you were in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so...
I'm nervous, because what if I don't know who they are?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't, I'll be disappointed in you, and we'll edit this out. But I've also considered that. So I'm going to tell you who sat in the chair, but I'm going to rewind a little bit. So the last time you were here in Nashville was a bizarre time for me. So our first time meeting in person was very interesting. And the reason is for the listener who doesn't know, you told me you were coming out to the U.S. and it wasn't your first time because you came when you were a kid, right?
Yeah, it was my first time to Nashville.
Your first time to Nashville.
Yeah.
And so we were going to not only we were planning on hanging out, doing some music, but I was like, hey, come stay at my place, we got a spare room we can set up for you. And then you got probably the awkward DM from me at one point where I was like, Joe, I got to back out on letting you stay at my place. My mom's just been diagnosed with cancer, and we may, we're going to have her. Now, the funny thing is, at the time that I told you that, I didn't really know what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. Well, little did I know that she was going to move to Nashville and come live with us during that time. And then even littler did I know, she, after a week of staying with us, just suddenly went into a lot of pain, and we took her to the hospital. This is why this is so risky to go into. And so we took her to the hospital, and she passed away 9 days later. Mm-hmm. And then weirdly, you were here the week that she was dying was when you were here.
Yes.
And so every day I'm texting you like, Joe, we might be able to hang out on Wednesday. It's so fucked up because I'm like, we might be able to hang out on Wednesday because my mom might be dead by then. But if she's still alive, I'm going to be here at the hospital with her.
Absolutely.
And I mean, you were nothing but kind about that. You're like, don't worry about me at all. Like, don't worry about me. I'm having a great time in Nashville. We don't have to hang out. Like, you're an important time. This is totally okay. And and you were sending me voice memos on Instagram. It's very sweet. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, yeah, I do still want to get together with you the one time you're here. And during that time that we were in the hospital, and I'm getting to who sat in the chair.
Yeah.
So while we were in that time in the hospital, we were playing all sorts of songs for my mom because they say that the last thing that you lose is your hearing. So she couldn't talk to us after the first day. She was alive for 9 more days where, in theory, I guess you just have to have faith in it that she could hear you. Mm-hmm. And so they had a guitar at the, this is the Vanderbilt, what do they call it?
Like a school hospital, isn't it? Like educational hospital.
Yes, it is a school, and they have a hospital and research facility, all of that. Mm-hmm. Anyway, in their wing where we went, the palliative care unit, awesome people, like shout out to the palliative care unit. Their whole goal is to just make it comfortable for the person passing and for the family. Yeah. And so they had a guitar there. And so I brought the guitar in, and I would play songs, and obviously sometimes from the laptop too. I didn't just play 24/7, but we would play all of her favorite songs, John Denver, the Eagles. Even at one point, I don't say it's too bizarre, but at one point we played a Green Day song, "Time of Your Life." We played all this music, and sometimes it was for us to cope, and sometimes it was her songs for her and everything else. So sadly, she passed away, and literally the next day, I was like, I don't know if it was your last day here, but
it was near the end.
Towards the end, I was like, I'm available tomorrow, and I'm sure you were like, are you sure?
I'm pretty confident I did use those exact words.
It's like, wow, this guy's fucked up. You're hating. No, but I'm just like, well, the thing was, I'm like, yeah, it feels really weird to like, let's get together and hang out. My mom just died, but at the same time, like, what else am I going to do?
Yes, and you won't know this, but I talked to Olivia, my wife, about the situation, and that's what we kind of I was like at your mercy. You know, you're a big boy.
Yeah.
You know, you make the decision, and maybe in that moment that's kind of what you needed to have some kind of distraction from what was going on. And you know, like you said, you'd done some grieving already because of the
weight.
Yeah, like how it had all come about. And you know, I'm not going to say, you know, I gave you every possible out.
Right.
And you were like, no, this is what I want. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I'm happy to make that, you know, I want to see you. So there we are.
And then I was very lucky that, you know, when we got to England, we got to hang out with you then, and things were a lot more normal. And so it's been it's just fun. It's not funny, but it's bizarre that I met you in person in that situation.
Yeah.
So yesterday, I come into the studio, and I knew that there was a video shoot. Somebody was shooting content, and I was in the room, and there was an older man sitting in that chair that you were sitting in. And I showed you my new jukebox I just bought. Yeah. And for the listener, it's a Seaberg Consulate wall box jukebox that some man in New York has programmed to be able to like play songs off an MP3 player. Anyway, it's incredible.
It is. It's cool.
And so I'm like, I just got it. So I'm like, this old man will appreciate this. Like, he's going to think it's rad, you know? Like, I'm like boomer bait. Like, I love all this boomer shit. I was like, oh, he's going to love it.
Yeah.
So I start talking to him, and he's asking me about the Waylon Jennings connection with the studio, and I'm sharing with him like what history I can. And then I'm about to be like, let's go look at my jukebox, like Grandpa, you know? And then the girl who's the publicist running the shoot, she's all right, Bernie, you want to come and they're ready for you now. And I was like, I'm like, oh, you're the talent. And because I thought he was there for business. Yeah. I thought he's like just a business guy or something. And he's like, oh yeah, that's what they say. And he gets up and he's getting ready to go in. And then they all know that I don't know who he is. And so she's all, this is Bernie Ledden. He is a founding member of the Eagles. And I was like, I literally said, like, the Eagles? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, the Eagles.
I just want to clarify, the Eagles.
Yeah. Not some, like, Free Goals, like an Eagle cover band. And they're like, yeah. And I was like, oh. And then I instantly pivoted to like, well, you know this about Chris, that he worked with Don Henley. That was at the time I was at House of Blues. My experiences with Don Henley are different than Chris. Chris was in the sessions. I was fetching him soup. But I was... So I instantly pivoted to be like, oh yeah, Don Henley was coming around and doing a record this time. He's like, oh yeah, I was on that tour with him and all this stuff. And so we chatted about that. So I instantly pivoted to trying to sound like I have some sort of like we're colleagues less than like you're from the fucking Eagles.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they went into the studio and did a few songs. And so I was like, okay, I really want to be around. Me and Ashley were supposed to like go meet for somebody for coffee. I was like, I won't be coming. I was like, an Eagle is in my studio. And it was weird because I know most of the Eagles' names, and I didn't know his name. And I guess the reason is because he left in 1975, and famously, apparently, by pouring a beer on Glenn Frey's head. But he was on all of the first 4 records, which is like all the major songs.
Yeah.
Like he's a co-writer of Witchy Woman. He played on, you know, Take It Easy, and he's in the song Peaceful Easy Feeling. He's the primary harmony in that song.
Wow.
So he's on all those songs. Apparently he's the last founding member alive besides Don Henley. It's just those two. Anyway, so I'm like, I want to be around, but I got to retreat. Also, I'm a business owner letting them use my space. I have to be professional.
Of course.
So I went off to the room where I have the jukebox, and I was like, I'll just work on my laptop in here. And then, of course, after their shoot, they walk in and they find it, and they're like, this is perfect for his new Christmas song. So then they walk into the room I'm in, and now I'm like, well, they enter. I was already here. Like, they seem to be cool with me. I'm just going to hang out. And so then I watch them film the content for his new Christmas song. We've just converted the whole studio to be Christmas to try to like sell people on doing photo shoots here. And I'm like, oh shit, the first person using our Christmas content studio is a founding member of the Eagles. I'm like, this is rad.
So cool, yeah.
I chatted with him a lot. He was very nice. He did love my jukebox, and he got the contact information from me, from the guy who makes them, because he's like, my wife loves jukebox. This is perfect. We'll get one.
Right.
And then we talked about analog recording. He's like, oh, great to see an MCI machine still in use. He's like, you use it? I'm like, yep, make albums on it all the time. And so we chatted and whatever else. and it was a good time. But I really wanted to tell him that, I love the Eagles, and they were my mom's favorite band. And when my mom was in the hospital, the song that we played on repeat that I would sing and that we'd put on was "Peaceful Easy Feeling." And I think I put in her memorial video. Anyway, that song is now ruined for Ashley. She's like, we can't listen to that song. It's just going to make her cry. So "Peaceful Easy Feeling," I mean, it's the Eagles who she loves, but also it's just the right sentiment. I mean, somebody's dying and there's nothing you can do. It's like, I've got a peaceful, easy feeling, and just so many of those lyrics hit. And I'm Googling him while he's there and finding out that he's on that song, that he's that harmony, and I just so wanted to tell him about this experience. I'm like, we sang that song to my mom in the hospital as she was dying. And I didn't. I literally, I was kind of like meandering as they left. I sort of meandered by the cars and they were all just chatting. And I'm like, I have to see myself out. I was like, I'm going to go to the coffee shop. I got a meeting. Good to see you guys. And I go start walking to the coffee shop. I get halfway there and I'm like, I should tell him the story so I don't regret this. I turned around and walked back, and and they were having him and the videographer having a conversation. I didn't have the balls to enter their conversation. Because even if I was going to tell Bernie, I'm like, I don't know this videographer. I'm going to be like, hey, so my mom died recently. And I'm like, And I've had another interaction where I told a musician that we played some of their songs around her death. They were doing a meet and greet where they're talking to hundreds of people. They didn't have time to properly. What I learned is that for me is one of the most profound stories of my life. But they're meeting hundreds of people telling them the profound stories their songs have of life.
Yeah.
They, no shame on this other person, but they don't have the emotional space to take on the weight of the whole world.
Of course.
They can't hear every story and take it on and give it the time of day it might deserve.
Yeah.
But what that kind of taught me is I'm like, there's no win here. Like, I didn't win because I walked away feeling like my important story is minimized. They didn't win because they don't have space to truly dedicate to everyone. And so I was like, I don't know this guy well enough to go drop this heavy story on him, because it will be my expectation that he have some sort of kind thing to say. And he may not be in that headspace. He's here doing work. He's just hired me. In fact, I've just provided him a service, and I'm a business owner.
Yeah.
I don't want to drop this on him right now.
Yeah.
And I passed him up, and then he left, and I vacillated, and he left. I did tell his publicist, and she's like, you should have told him. He would have let. I'm like, I don't know how to end this story. He did follow me back on Instagram, so maybe I'll try to see if he'll come on my podcast. Yeah. Maybe I'll get to share it with him.
I mean, you can only do what you can do with the information that you've got available to you at any given point. And that's what you did the best that you knew to do in that moment, because that's that. And that you have to accept that that's kind of what happened. You know, I had, last time I came here, I went to Chicago. I flew from Nashville to Chicago, and I went to see The Loft, Jeff Tweedy's studio. If you're a big Wilco fan or not, but
I'm not a big Wilco fan, but I respect them, and I've heard a few of their songs that I really like.
Yeah, well, Jeff Tweedy and he has a book called How to Write One Song, and
yes,
for a long time he has become kind of quite an important figure in my understanding of what I want from my place in the world, and few things have happened over the last 18 months where I ended up standing in his studio chatting with him, you know, shaking his hand and chatting with him. And doesn't mean a lot to anyone except me, really, but it was so profound given the sort of, I mean, we don't need to go into, it's too long of a story to go into details of it, and it's not for this podcast, but, you know, the sort of journey that I've been on professionally and personally in terms of trying to figure out what I want out of the world, you know, not just accepting that I'm in a Beatles show for, you know, and just accepting my lot, you know, pushing for what I really want out of the world. And the reading Jeff's stuff was a big thing for me. So, you know, I'm not equating that story to your story, but it's only in the sense that there is a personal thing for me in that moment. And every ounce of me wanted to tell Jeff Tweedy how special standing there and shaking his hand is. And I didn't say it. And I shook his hand twice. We chatted for like 20 minutes. And I desperately wanted a picture with him. I desperately wanted to say to him, I don't know if you care about this or not, but meeting you is a profoundly life-affirming moment for me. And I don't know whether that means anything to you or whether you benefit from knowing that or not. But I'm so grateful for everything you've put into the world and how I just want you to know that what you do in service, the art that you put out into the world provides a great service, and it's profoundly affected my decision-making in my life. And I am so grateful for that. And I didn't say any of it. And I got back to my hotel room. I hope this isn't weird, but I basically just sort of sobbed. And I rang my wife and I was so overwhelmed with gratitude for that situation, and almost sad that I didn't tell him. And I might meet him in the future. I'm okay with it. I very, very quickly kind of was accepted that was what it was. Maybe it wasn't right for that situation, but it's the same kind of thing. I don't know whether it was because it's my story, it's my journey, and I wanted to pass on some sort of love to him, and just, I'm sure he gets it all over the place, but that's all you want in that moment is to let that person know you have had a profound impact on my journey. In, whether that's singing a song to your mother as she's on her deathbed, or whether it's affecting a life choice or whatever it is, personal situation. We as humans want to share that.
Right.
We want the creator to know this is how important your art's been for us. And we just want you to know that. And I don't know. I think if I could go back, I probably would say, I would force myself to let the words come out my mouth. And that it's probably taught me that, even in this moment now, sharing that story is super vulnerable, but I'm sharing it because I think it's all right.
And that's all right.
Yeah,
it's
part of the reason I didn't share it with him in that moment is because in a funny way, I wanted to put a bit of a front on of like, I'm a musician too, and wanted
exactly. Yeah,
and I regret not being vulnerable in front of him. I haven't ever articulated it like this, but that's exactly what it is. I wouldn't say regret. There's no regrets, but in that moment, I wasn't able to be vulnerable in front of him, and I would like that to be the takeaway, that it's okay for me to be vulnerable in front of people. I don't need to project that I'm I don't need him to know that I'm a working musician doing cool stuff. None of that really mattered in that moment, and I let that get in the way of sharing a special moment with him. And that's been my learning. So just to sort of give you some affirmation that it's okay.
Yeah, no, that's such a perfect story. Yeah, I don't know what to pull from any of it, but I wanted to share that. It's
lovely. It's really cool, man. It's such a in a funny kind of way. I feel quite, I don't know what right word is, but it's special that I was around at that time. I think for that reason, there will be that thing in our friendship for years to come, and it was interesting, and I think I appreciate that story more, having kind of been around at that time. So thanks.
Yeah, I agree. And it was a bizarre moment, but it was very cool. And I felt that connection when we came in and visited you in Kippax, and it's a wild world, but I will say that if nothing else, it was meaningful to me that an eagle was here in my space, and
so special,
and was the first to christen our Christmas pop-up. And I'm just like, you have so many things in the wake of my mom passing. There's been so many little weeks from the universe, if you will, or just little moments that are just beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm much quicker to cry than before, and much quicker to get emotional. I got emotional earlier today. But there's also a certain fuck you energy that comes from it. That's great.
Because it's because you're becoming better at listening to inside yourself. You've deeper in touch with your emotions. It's having gone through that incredibly difficult time has taught you more about yourself, which is why you're able to be more vulnerable and allow you to feel emotions. You're not kind of you weren't doing it knowingly before. This is sort of generic talk, not about you specifically, but you put a bit of almost a cap on what you allow yourself to feel, and having gone through what you've just gone through, you've allowed yourself to listen to your emotions more, which is a good thing. That's I think that's really important. And I think that's important as an artist. I get it when watching. It's funny, like when me and my wife watch films, I'm always the one who's got like wet eyes,
right?
And she's just like, and I can't help it. It's because I empathize with the characters so strongly.
Yeah, you're connected to the emotions.
Yeah. I listen to the way I feel constantly, and I'm certainly not I'm not claiming to be like fucking spiritually enlightened, but I'm trying my hardest to listen to what's going on in my body constantly.
Yeah. And the world needs people that listen to their emotions and share them to everybody else, and that is ultimately what makes the Beatles special, and it's what makes what you do special. Playing drum tracks. Now, finally, your shout out. Joe is a session drummer, and you can hire him to play on your songs. Hit him up if you need drums on your song.
There you go. That's it.
But what you bring, and trying to try AI and all of it all into one thing, like what you bring to a session is your unique human experience. And if you're not listening to your emotions and your inner voice, then you're not doing it. I think part of what my counterpoint in that conversation it's like, in one way, your voice isn't the only voice, and there's something that's like in your gut and your heart to do that's like opposite of what I might be in my gut or my heart to do.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you can only really be one person, and that's Joe Montague. Am I saying it right?
Montague.
Yeah. Yeah. I've said it like Joe Montague. I'm like,
I get loads when I get like telesales calls or whatever. I get all manner of pronunciations of it. It's great.
Joey Montague.
Yeah, well, even in the coffee shop, Joey.
Yeah,
Joey. It's I didn't think it was that complicated, but it is. But
that's the only person you can be, and the unique inner experiences you've had in life, even down to like being sucked into Beatles world and dedicating yourself to learning hundreds of Ringo songs note for note and understanding all of that is what's produced you.
Yeah.
And then now you listening to your inner voice and your inner emotion, your inner gut, and just bringing that to the world puts those emotions into songs. And I think it really matters. I think we know the end listener does feel it, and we know that because you don't feel the AI version of it. Something's wrong. And there's not a person there, and it does deeply matter to the people who are hiring you because they're bought into your story and the thing that you bring, and they're like, I'm sure they're listening back to this, or they're showing the song to their friends, and they're like, that's Joe Montague. Hugh? Am I saying? Gew. That's why that's Montague. Some British type shit.
It's Romeo and Juliet. Romeo Montague and Juliet Capulet. Yeah.
Yeah. We saw Romeo and Juliet in London, and I didn't understand 75% of the words that they
said. One of them was Montague. So
Montague.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, Joe Montague played on this track.
Yeah.
And like they're bought into, there's a story behind that. Yeah, he's a Beatles drummer and he did this, and then now he's gone into this, and he's doing the session work and all the things. And they're like interested in this story and the heart that you bring to it. So
yeah. Oh, what a great summation of that conversation.
Yeah, like trying to bring it all together.
Well done.
Thank you so much for coming, Joe.
Oh, thank you for having me.
I know it's been a very long episode, but it was a beautiful conversation. So
it was. I enjoyed it very much.